As it relates to the clerk. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Zebulon Board of Commissioners meeting May 1st, 2023. Call this meeting to order. First, we have Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Baxter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the agenda.
Mayor, I have two items. I would like to pull ordinance 2023-36 from consent. As well as I would like to add to the closed session per North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6 to evaluate manager performance.
When you said you was pulling orders 2020-36, where did you want to pull it? Say,
Under new business, C.
is there a motion?
I move to adopt the agenda as amended.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, roll vote, starting with Commissioner Laux.
Favor.
Commissioner Harris.
Favor.
Commissioner Clark.
Favor.
Commissioner Miles.
Favor.
Commissioner Baxter.
Favor.
Motion passes. School recognition. Student Alana Simpson. Alana.
Alani.
Alani. Alani Simpson from Wake Elementary School is an outstanding 5th grade student. She shows up to school each day ready to give 110%. When it comes to character traits, she has many positive ones. Alani conducts herself with integrity and kindness, always willing to assist her classmates. She is an exemplary role model to those around her. She is seen as a student leader and models what it means to be a Wakeland Bulldog. We are proud of her and delighted to have her in our classes. She is one of a kind. The town of Zebulon recognizes Alani Simpson, Wakeland Elementary School, for being an outstanding student and a role model to her other students. May 1st, 2023, signed by Mayor Glenn L. York. We have teacher Kiosha Allen. Ms. Allen is a phenomenal media specialist. She goes beyond our expectations when bringing literacy and the love of books alive to our students. Her positive attitude, her positive work ethics are contagious. She always looks for ways to assist with school-wide implementations. She plans monthly engagement opportunities for our students to learn about our cultures and differences. Ms. Allen does a superb job engaging community members in our school. This academic year, she has organized and hosted our Hispanic Heritage Celebration and our African American read-ins. She, on her own, invited many district community members to come and read to our students. She also organizes and implemented Wakeland's inaugural Spelling Bee and Wax Museum. She is amazing, and we are so lucky to have her. The town of Zebulon recognizes Kiosha Allen, Wakeland Elementary School, for her dedication to the school and its students, May 1st, 2023, signed by Mayor Glenn L. York. We have several proclamations, and I'm asking for help from the board to read some of them. First, we have Municipal Clerks Week, and I think that's Commissioner Harrison.
Proclamation, Municipal Clerks Week, April 30th through May 6, 2023. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. Whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, province, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Commissioners of the town of Zebulon, do recognize the week of April 30th through May 6, 2023 as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk and to all municipal clerks for their vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Adopted the first day of May 2023, Glenn L. York, Mayor. Lisa Markland, Town Clerk.
Next we have Public Service Week. Clark.
Proclamation Public Service Week, May 7th through 13th, 2023. Whereas the residents of Zebulon, North Carolina are served every day by public employees at the federal, state, local levels of government. And whereas each day the talented and dedicated town of Zebulon public employees work to keep the town operating by ensuring proper management of municipal services and strategic implementation of public resources. And whereas in often difficult circumstances, our public employees are the unsung heroes that protect and enhance the quality of life for our residents, businesses, and visitors. And whereas the public employees of the town of Zebulon are committed to exhibiting the highest standards of professional excellence, creativity, skill, and customer service. And whereas Public Service Recognition Week has been celebrated the first part of May since 1985 to honor the men and women who serve our nation as federal, state, county, and local government employees. Now, therefore, the Zebulon Board of Commissioners do hereby announce and proclaim May 7th through 13th, 2023 as Public Service Recognition Week and encourage all citizens to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of government employees at all levels, federal, state, and local. Adopted this first day of May 2023, Glen L. York Mayor, Lisa Markland, Town Clerk.
And next is Police Week. Commissioner Hawks.
Proclamation, National Police Appreciation Week, May 14th through May 20th, 2023. Whereas in 1963, the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Town of Zebulon Police Department. And whereas the members of the Zebulon Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of our community. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agencies, and that officers of the Town of Zebulon recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of law enforcement of the Town of Zebulon increasingly provide a vital public service by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to this community, and in doing so have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. Now, therefore, the Town of Zebulon Board of Commissioners proclaim the week of May 14th through May 20th, 2023 as Police Week, and call upon all citizens of Zebulon and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe May 15th, 2023 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, in which people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of their duty. Adopted this day, first day of May 2023, Mayor Glenn York, Town Clerk Lisa Markland.
Thank you. Public Works.
Proclamation National Public Works Week, May 21st through May 27th, 2023. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the citizens of Zebulon. And whereas those facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals. And whereas those individuals build, operate, maintain, and administer the streets, sidewalks, stormwater infrastructure, solid waste and recycling collections, public buildings, and other structures and facilities that are vital to the citizens of Zebulon. And whereas it is in the interest of the public for citizens, civic leaders, and children to continue to gain information and to understand the role Public Works plays in the town of Zebulon. And whereas 2023 marks the 63rd Annual National Public Works Week. Now, therefore, the Board of Commissioners of the town of Zebulon joins the American Public Works Association in recognizing the contributions of public works professionals to the health, safety, and quality of life in Zebulon, and proclaims the week of May 21st through May 27th, 2023 as National Public Works Week. Adopted this first day of May 2023, Glenn L. York, Mayor, Lisa M. Markland, Town Clerk.
Thank you. I'd like to give a hand to all those who serve and who are appreciated. Thank you. Now, public comment. We have John Stafford.
Good evening, Commissioners. Hope y'all are doing well tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to address y'all, just to give you a few updates on the Chamber. It's been a very busy past 5 weeks. On March 23rd, we celebrated the Chamber's 75th anniversary. Had about 135 guests met together to celebrate at East Wake Academy, and many of you were there. And I have several thank yous to y'all for helping out with the Chamber and promoting community through the Chamber recently. And for those of you who were able to make it that day, we know that you had a very full day and appreciate your taking time out to come and celebrate with us. And it was a wonderful event. Since that time, I've told y'all about the relocation guide, AKA Welcome Home Guide. Started working on this about a year ago, finally was published in April, and these are being sent out on a monthly basis to all new residents in Zebulon. The theme, this is the first time we've done this, is sponsored by the Chamber, and Mayor York, thank you for your contribution with your essay in here, Welcome to New Residents. The theme is to, of course, promote our businesses, but looking specifically at the history of Zebulon, introducing our new residents to that, and encouraging them to get involved in civic life. And so an essay that I wrote in there encourages that. So I brought copies for you all. The average, I think, of about 75 to 80 will be sent out on a monthly basis. Thank you, Lisa. I've got one more thing. And then this past week, Mayor, thank you in your absence, doing a video and helping with the ribbon cutting for Zebulon's first historic district. So we had the ribbon cutting for that on Thursday afternoon at 4 on Sycamore Street, and followed by a VIP reception, and then the historic homes tour that was ticketed out of the Chamber on Saturday. And according to what Mary Beth Carpenter sent back about the homes tour, 240 tickets were sold, so approximately that number would have participated in the tours, which is up from last year. So as I was meeting and greeting people coming in and out of the Chamber, we had people from Durham, all over, that came to town just for the tour to see the historic district on Saturday, and that helps with our small businesses as they were coming in for lunches, for dinners, and so forth, and then of course to participate in Springfest. I do want to thank also Parks and Rec, the planning department in particular, that provided resources for the Welcome Home Guide. I had that as a mental note and just remembered that. So they really are showing themselves as team players with the Chamber, and I really appreciate all that we're doing together. Thank you. This is an article about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Anyone else signed up for public comment?
No, sir.
Next, we have consent agenda.
I move to adopt consent agenda as amended.
Motion, do we need a second? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Clark. All in favor? Motion passes. Old business, utility allocation policy amendments.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. Tonight, we continue the conversation regarding our utility allocation policy. As you may recall, the utility allocation policy is an opportunity for the town to leverage the water and sewer allocations to obtain high-quality development and incentivize desired uses, amenities, and features. As you may recall, City of Raleigh owns the system, the pipes that which everything flows, but the town actually owns that allocation. And like many other communities that have agreements with City of Raleigh, we have this utility allocation policy. The proposed changes are a result of conversations with several different developers, both residential and commercial, where we've discovered that due to some point restrictions, meeting the 60 minimum base points became unachievable, particularly for smaller commercial operations and some infill developments. So the proposed policy amendment that was brought before you at the work session a few weeks ago restructured the base points. It brought some points up based on certain things that might not require additional or substantial usage in terms of water, or single-use operations such as an exempt subdivision where somebody might be splitting off a single parcel where it's unrealistic that they would be able to obtain those opportunities. We've included new base points based on uses. These include the bungalow court subdivision, as well as the small-scale major subdivision, which was between 4 and 25 units, kind of that gray area where they don't have the necessary volume capable of achieving the additional bonus point amenities that would be needed to meet that 60-point minimum. We restructured the category maximums. As you recall, each category had a maximum, and then each subcategory had a maximum. The proposed amendment takes away the overall category maximum, but maintains those subcategory maximums to allow for certain developments, particularly non-residential developments that were not able to sample from the residential amenity options to explore those options to achieve the 60 points. We've added additional subcategories, such as affordable housing, into the mix. And I appreciate Commissioner Miles giving me a heads up about a spelling error, and that's been corrected in our documentation already. So I appreciate that, giving the heads up on that. As well as new bonus points, such as enhanced landscape buffers. These expand the opportunities. We realize that not all developments are the exact same, and they need to kind of figure out what is best for the character and style and type of development that they're looking for in order to achieve the points. So to summarize, we need to incentivize the uses that we want, as opposed to just creating regulations for negotiations and hoping the development community understands what our goals and our objectives are above and beyond what is listed in our comprehensive land use plan. This includes infill development as well as the affordable housing. We also need to plan versus react. As you recall, Mitchell Silver in his presentation said that we can be a plan-making community or a deal-making community. This helps us to achieve that goal of being a plan-making community by making it very clear the goals and objectives as opposed to just reacting to the development pressures. This includes welcoming in small-scale commercial operations. We need to diversify. Right now, we have several parcels that have the opportunity for small-scale developments, whether it's residential or commercial. We need to find ways to help incentivize the appropriate redevelopment of these, as opposed to just having to wait until these get combined with much larger developments and create more of the same in terms of a residential development structure. So to recap, we've restructured the base points, we've restructured the point categories, as well as the bonus points. The planning board read through the recommendations, which were handed out to you at the work session a few weeks ago, and they unanimously recommended approval of the policy amendments as presented. Staff recommends approval of the policy amendments as well. I'm available if you have any questions. Additionally, being that this is a policy, we can make modifications up until the point of adoption. I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions from the board?
I have some statements. I don't feel real comfortable with how some of these points are allocated, especially since single-family homes go from 30 points to 60 points. I think that that's a little bit unreasonable, saying that they have to achieve nothing else in the utility allocation policy to be able to be granted water rights. The same for change of use. If we're really trying to craft a community that we want to live in and see the types of amenities and upgrades that we've all decided we want to strive towards, we can't be handing out 60 base points when we need to have 60 points altogether. I've seen, in some cases, the base points were raised in small amounts. It looks like 2 for like hotels or motels. But when single-use retail goes from 20 to 40, I think that we need more of a middle ground there, instead of just such a wide leap. I still think that there's an opportunity, and that we have enough options through the utility allocation policy for most developments and reuses to be able to pick and choose enough to be able to reach where they need to be at the 60-point level. Some of them, I do agree, we originally adopted that were too low and that they should be moved up. But I think that overall, there's a little bit too much movement for me to feel comfortable.
And if I may, let's see if I have a photo of that. I do not. Okay, the single-family residential increase, that is specifically a new use category for exempt subdivisions. Those are very tightly restricted based on state statute. Those are not your residential subdivisions. Those are not Weaver's Pond, Autumn Lakes. Those are somebody carving out a single parcel out of a much larger tract typically for the construction of one dwelling unit. You still have in there 2 different categories for major subdivision. One category which was created to allow for that small scale subdivision, which was 4 to 25 units. And then the residential subdivision, the major subdivision, still remains at 10 base points. So for a development that comes in with more than the 25 units, they're still going to need to accommodate 50 bonus points. In the questions about the more of a middle ground for single-use retail, what number were you thinking?
Well, it was at 20, and you'd like it to move to 40, but I think I'd feel more comfortable at 30. And then on the very last page, at the very top, there's points for covered or internal bicycle parking, bicycle racks, little libraries, water fountains, public work bike stand with tools, and it just seems like, why would anyone put in a drinking fountain where they're going to have to run a dedicated water line, and when they could just throw together a little library? So I mean, like, I think that having a drinking fountain at 1, like, that's, in this case, it's too low. We should be wanting to incentivize that a little bit more. I'm thinking more along the 2 or 3 point range.
Okay.
But overall, I'd just like to hear what the other commissioners think about the rest of this policy and if they have any thoughts on how things were allocated.
Commissioner Miles?
I think for me, just one quick question is the outdoor mural. I just want a little bit more understanding of that, how the TRC would approve that, Mike.
Yeah, during the conversations, it became very apparent that the majority of the developments that we were speaking with in terms of how they were going to achieve these policies, every time the word public art came about, they were instantly thinking sculptures or something along those lines. One person asked, well, okay, well, if I do a sculpture as well as a mural, would each of those count? And the way that was previously structured, no, it would not. You'd be maxed out. But upon conversations internally with some of the members of our TRC as well as our development, we decided let's put this as a potential option for your consideration.
Thank you.
Commissioner Clark?
I'm satisfied with it.
Commissioner Harrison?
I had questions about the single-family home, but you explained it, so thank you. That was my only concern.
Commissioner Laux?
Yeah, a couple questions and a couple comments. Under affordable housing, we do have the definition based upon AMI or average median income. I'm curious how you can control the length of that and how you're going to monitor it. Naturally, starting off in year one, it's very easy to determine what the rent should be, but that changes every year. And how are we going to control that no longer affordable housing after 2 years? The mechanism to control that. Second of all, I don't like anything getting all the base points. As Commissioner Baxter mentioned, that you get the entire 60 just because you're doing a single family. I think that needs to be lowered. I also like the idea, if this is a great, you've done some great tweaking, and this is a great incentive document to get points, but if we're looking for particular businesses, for example, a restaurant, I think we can incentivize economic development by picking some businesses we're trying to recruit and give them some points just to get them here, and then we can tweak it as we add restaurants, for example. Another comment, I would like to see you keep the aeration for fountains back in there.
I'm sorry,
So
can you
if
say that
somebody
again?
puts in a fountain, we added, when we adopted this, the installation of a fountain or mechanical aeration or stormwater pond just to increase the water quality and the appearance. I'd like to have us keep that in there.
If I may, with that one of the reasons that was not included is in certain situations, that's a UDO requirement. And these are things that go above and beyond the UDO.
Okay, but that wouldn't be a requirement for every pond that's put in.
No, in certain situations, they have it as a naturalized pond with plantings and vegetation in those circumstances.
I still like to keep that in there as an incentive because we do have some smaller ponds in some of these subdivisions. We even talked about and put in a fountain or something in there just to keep the air oxygenated.
Sure.
I agree with that because it cuts down on mosquito transmission.
Okay. And what kind of point structure are you thinking for that?
We currently have it was at 5. I'm open for suggestions there as far as the fountain aeration.
I think that if we're talking about something that it will potentially act as a part of an integrated pest management system that is pesticide-free and relatively easy to implement, and if it's reducing our mosquito populations, that's actually good across the board because then our residents don't have to pay for mosquito service as quite a few do throughout the summertime. So I like it.
And
5? You can do that.
And as I said, I'm really curious on how we're going to keep up with this because having been on the Board of Adjustments for many years and putting conditions on some of the hearing things, I've seen trees blown over, shrubs die, and no one ever goes back and follows up and makes sure that they replace them. And that's happened more and more year after year, that we have to have something in place so we make sure these things that are put in place are in fact remain there and operate. And I don't know how you're going to do that because that's just another task for the planning department, but somehow we need to keep up with that where we review it annually or every 2-3 years.
Yeah, a copy of this of the utility allocation policy and the points that they're obtaining will be included as part of their approved stamped site plan for development. Right now, with our code enforcement officer, we don't have the capabilities in terms of time allotment to have proactive enforcement. We're hoping to get a second code enforcement officer if the budget allows. So that is something that we'll be able to start pursuing more often. But if you do know of any of these locations where there are violations of the approved site plan, please let us know. We'll go and take a look at it.
Yeah, and some of these projects may be ideal for a summer intern who wants to work in planning. It would be an ideal little exercise for him. All right. Otherwise, some very good tweaks.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion to adopt?
I hereby move to approve the amendments to the utility allocation policy as amended at the May 1st, 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting.
We have a motion.
Can you provide clarification on what those amendments are?
Oh, no, I didn't write those down.
We were just,
Sorry.
I mean, we did tell you what we were looking
Yeah, I didn't write those down.
Well, there are certain things that a couple people mentioned. There wasn't consensus on all of them.
Oh. So, Commissioner Baxter, could you give, do you have those written down?
All right,
Commissioner
so
Wells?
I almost just want to move this to a work session now. This seems like, I thought that you were writing this down, I'm sorry.
Well, I wrote a lot down, but I'm looking for consensus as part of the motion.
Is there a consensus part of the motion? Commissioner Laux?
I don't think everyone understands exactly what we're agreeing upon.
So we're agreeing on making the consensus on the things that you all shared that you wanted to change, which is the
5 points on
the 5 points for the water fountain. I don't think we ever came to a consensus with the number.
For 2 or 3 for like the drinking fountain, what do you guys think? I just think it shouldn't be 1.
I think it's got to be 3. I was going to go with 3.
Okay, so
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
3.
how does 3
For me.
sound for everybody? Okay, so
3.
3 for the drinking fountain.
Is that a consensus?
So let's go through this.
What about 60 points for a single-family house? I mean, like I said, I'm not happy with the full 60.
And once again, I think I need to provide further clarification with that. If you have a parcel and you carve out 1 acre of that, in order for somebody to build upon that 1 acre, under the current regulations, they would have to do bonus points necessary to obtain that minimum of 60 points for 1 home. If that's the direction you choose to go, we'll enforce it, but it will prevent people from being able to build single homes within the town of Zebulon.
This says minor subdivision or exempt subdivision, and it says 3 or fewer lots, but you were just talking about 1.
Yeah, or 3 lots, 1, anything that's a minor subdivision. And that is a state classification. That's not a local classification. The state classifies different subdivision types.
All right, so I'm actually going to suggest that we move this to a work session so that we can move on with our discussion tonight. Is everyone?
We have a motion on the
agreed
floor.
For that? Okay,
I would like to withdraw my motion.
okay.
And possibly come back with the control mechanisms that we can keep up with this, and maybe Shannon, the economic developer, has some ideas of some businesses we could potentially add to this that would get points, just to act as a true incentive.
So do we need a motion to move this to work session?
I move we move the utility allocation policy amendment to our next work session.
Second.
Second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Ordinance 2023-38, TIA text amendment.
Okay, once again, good evening. This is a continuation of an item that you heard in April as a joint public hearing. The transportation impact analysis is effectively a way for us to leverage the development community to help offset the costs associated with primarily off-site transportation improvements. The way, they use an engineered analysis based on the trips that's going to be generated for a particular development in order for them to determine what the off-site impacts are going to be. You see these frequently when they're doing traffic counts before developments occur. And right now, our UDO has a base threshold of 100 points. The scope of the text amendments is to look at the current traffic conditions, as well as right now, a lot of these TIs have been relying on both real-time traffic as well as what's known as AADT numbers. Those are determined by the state of North Carolina Department of Transportation. However, those, as you can see on this map, don't cover all of the town of Zebulon. So they also look at turning counts. You'll see the black cables strung across the roads. That's how they determine how many people are turning right, going straight, turning left at each of these different intersections. During this analysis, they determine, okay, what's going to happen if we do nothing? And they run those calculations based on other developments that are occurring, projected traffic increases, to determine, okay, what's the level of service, or how long am I going to have to wait at these particular intersections? They then run another analysis of, okay, if my development gets approved, what's going to be the impact? And what's going to be the change between that build and no build? That's where they start coming in with improvements that the developer has to make for those off-site locations. And ultimately, those improvements are brought in and reviewed by a third-party engineer that the town contracts with, and are included as part of the development review and approved as part of technical review committee. Unified Development Section 6.13 is a section in our ordinance that regulates when and if a transportation impact analysis is necessary. Right now, we're proposing to lower the threshold to require a TI. Right now, we require 100 trips. For a lot of subdivisions, if it's less than 98 units, you're not going to achieve that threshold. We're looking to expand the area. There's some definitions and calculations based on traffic volume and traffic generated that would determine if it was a half mile or a quarter mile. We're looking to expand that out depending with maintaining those same or similar thresholds, as well as providing clarification that in certain situations we can ask for additional study of particular intersections. We're also asking for something which will help the board and non-traffic engineers understand specifically graphic illustrations of how these improvements are going to be constructed at particular intersections, above and beyond that little chart where it's just the grid with the arrows and the numbers. A lot of people, they don't understand that. So currently, we only require traffic and impact analysis for 100 peak hour trips. And a peak hour trip is not something that we determine, but this is determined by International Transportation Manual or an on-site study that's being done. We're looking to reduce this by half. So anything 50 peak hour trips would have that threshold. We're also realizing that not everything has a high concentration of peak hours, but constant traffic going through it. Think of some of these smaller drive-through restaurants as an example, where they might not have 50 vehicles in an hour, but they're going to have constant vehicles going throughout the day. So we're looking at also included 150 average daily trips. Certain development types, and we'll get into that in a little detail with some graphics, as well as certain uses, as well as looking at existing traffic conditions. If you have a situation where you're going to do a development that might have 48 peak hour trips and it's only going to generate 140 average daily trips, but you're on a road that's failing and an intersection that's failing, nothing you do to that site is going to make the situation better unless it's required as part of a TIA. So we're going to start looking at those as well. Some of the differences, talked about developments and uses. Not all vehicles have the same impact. You have vehicles such as from a concrete plant or an asphalt plant, or some of these heavy industrial, like rock quarries as an example, where they have a significant impact above and beyond what the impact would be from a traditional passenger vehicle. Those uses are going to be requiring a TIA automatically. Same thing with some of these smaller subdivisions. As I noted, right now, unless you have like 98 residential homes going or dwelling units going in, it's not going to hit that 100 peak hour trip generation. Whereas bringing it down to 50, smaller developments such as this suddenly would be required to do a TIA. You have a series of these developments where they don't require TIAs. Suddenly, those road improvements at major intersections nearby don't get approved. It's not always the individual effect, but that cumulative effect that causes the difficulties. As well as I noted, level of service D or below would require a traffic impact analysis if you're doing development along that corridor. I talked a little bit about the study area. Right now, we require study areas of 1/4 mile. As an example, this is the site adjacent to the Walmart in Gannett. That radius, which is a little difficult to see on this screen, this is a 1/4 mile radius from the outermost boundaries of that development. As you can see here, it doesn't even pick up the interchanges for the freeway. 1/2 mile picks up the interchanges, but not much more. We're looking at 1/2 mile being the first benchmark for the lower trip generation uses and expanding that out to a full mile for the higher trip generation. And in certain situations, we're not going to have everybody look at, as an example, all the intersections in downtown that are not applicable where you don't have typical traffic patterns for certain developments. But for the major intersections, it's going to have to be something that would be included as part of the scope of work. Additionally, there's a provision in there that allows for the planning director to add additional intersections. We provided additional term in there based on traffic or local traffic conditions. The reason for that is hypothetically, let's say you have a development on Perry Curtis Road, right around the Bend area. That development, if you think about how those individuals are going to be getting to US 64, 264, downtown, that 1/2 mile and that 1 mile radius is still not going to be satisfactory. Suddenly you're thinking, okay, what are all the major intersections that would have to be taken into consideration? Some of them not even in Wake County. As an example, County Line Road and 39 is way down here. But that might be the quickest route for somebody to get to 264 and then up to 64. So providing clarification that based on those local transportation patterns, we would like those intersections to be included as part of the TIA. The Planning Board reviewed the text amendment as presented and unanimously recommended approval for your consideration tonight, finding that it met Section 2.2.20G of our Unified Development Ordinance and was consistent with the Targeted and Planning Studies section of our Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Staff also recommends approval, finding that's consistent with the standards as outlined in the UDO. And I'm available if you have any questions, and I do have a sample motion in the affirmative if you decide to take action on the item tonight.
Questions from the board? Mr. Baux?
Long overdue. I'm in favor of it.
Commissioner Harrison?
Commissioner Clark?
No questions.
Commissioner Miles?
No questions.
Commissioner Baxter?
I don't have any questions, but I have a comment. I'm so glad that this is finally being addressed. I think that this is going to make what we asked the planning department to do easier because it gives them more latitude to require these studies. So thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Is there a motion to adopt?
I hereby move to approve ordinance 2023-38 to amend section 6.13 of the UDO, finding the request is consistent with section 2.220-G and the comprehensive land use plan's targeted planning studies recommendations.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Miles. Discussion? We have a roll vote starting with Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Clark.
Right.
Okay. In favor.
Commissioner Harrison?
Favor.
Commissioner Laux?
In favor?
Commissioner Baxter?
In favor.
Commissioner Miles?
Favor.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next, Clifton Grove deliberation.
Okay, as this item was tabled at the previous two meetings, once again, the standards as outlined in section 2.2.G of the UDO is the owner provides recommendation or approval of the requested annexation, that services can be provided to the site, not only in terms of utilities, but also municipal services such as police, fire, trash pickup, brush pickup, and such. That the cost and return analysis is done to show that this is consistent with operating procedures and would not result in undue burden to the town, and that it is consistent with public health, safety, and welfare. Once again, this item is located near Pippin and Pierce's Road. The applicant is D.R. Horton. The property is currently owned by the Watson Family LLC, and they're requesting to annex in 121.02 acres over 5 parcels. As you can see, the parcel is currently located in our extraterritorial jurisdiction. It is worth noting that if this annexation is approved, the satellite annexation, which is everything from this point north, would suddenly become contiguous to our corporate limits. The site currently does have sewer running through the property, therefore utilities can be provided. Additionally, it is surrounded on 2 sides by our corporate limits, so a lot of situations, police, fire, public works actually pass by this site to access the other sites. Staff recommends approval of the proposed annexation and adoption of ordinance 2023-30, finding that the standards 2.2.2G of our UDO have been met. Once again, those are, the owner has provided approval for annexation, services can be provided, the cost analysis has been determined, and that meets the public health, safety, and welfare. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Laux?
No.
Commissioner Harrison?
None.
Commissioner Clark?
None.
Commissioner Miles?
Yes. As we know, many current residents are rather concerned about more residential growth. In the financial analysis of this request, it is stated the estimated tax revenue generated post-development is approximately $362,000. So my question, in this estimate tax revenue amount, how many new homes will be needed to generate this money? How were those numbers determined? Where did they come from? That's my first question.
I'm sorry, can you provide clarification to your first question?
Okay. How many new homes would be needed to generate this volume of money, the $362,000? How were these numbers determined, and where did they come from?
The numbers that were included in the staff report were based on the proposed development that was going to be constructed using the average value, average assessed value within the town of Zebulon multiplied by our tax rate.
Okay. Next question. Why are we able to consider the potential estimate tax revenue with this annexation proposal if we have been specifically instructed in previous annexations requests to not consider anything but actual annexation, including these types of tax benefits, hypotheticals?
The question was asked earlier on about what was going to be built here, and therefore the cost revenue projections were provided.
Next question. If this annexation is approved, approximately when will this tax revenue be realized by the town?
It's going to be up to you on when the development or when the annexation becomes effective, and then when the development is fully constructed.
So can you give me a guesstimation of approximately?
If you delay the annexation to the maximum amount permitted by North Carolina general statute, and the developer is able to construct the entirety up until the annexation effective date, the town would get 0 in tax revenue. Whereas if this was effective immediately, July 1 is the threshold for when taxes are calculated. Bills are sent out in September, and they are due shortly after. So that's when the tax revenue based on the current assessed value, as these new homes get constructed, as the plat gets approved, those items certainly are taken into consideration in our tax rolls based on what is on the ground at that time and what is the assessed value. The assessed value is determined by the Wake County Assessor's Office, not the town of Zebulon.
So September, we say if we approve tonight, you're saying September, we will start seeing tax dollars for this.
For the current assessed value of the land.
But not attributed to the 362,000 as estimated?
No, because those haven't been constructed yet.
Just want to verify that. One last question. Did the planning board weigh in on this at all, Mike?
The planning board does not take action on annexations. It is solely a Board of Commissioners determination.
Perfect. Thank you.
Commissioner Baxter?
My question about assessed value is answered. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
I have one.
Commissioner Miles?
I'm not sure if Mr. Cooper's in. I would like to give him an opportunity to speak tonight, if he would, please.
Good evening. I don't know if I need to represent anything, but I'll gladly answer any questions. I know we've tried to kind of go through, along with our attorney, to just answer and clarify anything that may have came up as far as this review. Hopefully we've gotten to a point to clarify that this is for annexation, in addition to the tax revenue. If the board approves this annexation tonight, as Mr. Clark mentioned, it would be a quicker effect to receiving those tax dollars versus delaying. We would do our best to provide, provide the homes and get to the estimated value as soon as possible, if that's the case. I'll be glad to answer any further questions if you still have any.
Just wanted to extend the opportunity for you to speak. I know we had spoken earlier today. Just want to verify.
Any questions, comments?
Anyways, I do have a motion in the affirmative if you decide to take action on this item tonight.
Any other questions, comments?
What's the longest that we can extend them out, Mike? What is that? Where would the threshold?
I'm going to defer that to the town attorney.
Thank you.
Please repeat that question. I didn't hear it.
How far can we extend it out, the annexation?
That's based on the fiscal year. I don't have it right off the top of my tongue, but I believe you can extend it to June 30th of this year, or you can go one more fiscal year after that, June 30th of 2024. I believe that's correct.
Thank you. Is that correct, Mike?
I have one more question, actually.
Commissioner Baxter?
So as far as the utility allocation policy, was this presented? Okay, all right, thank you.
This application's been under review for over 2 years.
Okay.
Any other questions? Commissioner Laux?
Just a point of clarification, if we were to use your motion and annex this, the effective date would be July 1 of 2023, correct?
The effective date would be immediately.
Immediate, okay.
On
Just
the
wanted to get
sample
that
motion.
clarified.
And one point of clarification, if the board does vote to delay the annexation, that does not delay the opportunity for the applicant to begin construction. The only thing it delays is the opportunity for the town to accept tax revenue associated with it.
Any other questions? Comments? We have a motion for adoption.
I hereby move to approve ordinance 2023-30 for the annexation of Wake County Pins 27060640049, 27060754565, 1796960562, 17969640306, and 27061544262 into the Zebulon corporate boundaries, finding that the standards of section 2.2.2G are met.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll vote, starting with Commissioner Baxter,
Approve.
Commissioner Miles,
Favor.
Commissioner Clark,
Favor?
Commissioner Harrison,
Favor.
Commissioner Laux.
Favor.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next, Angel Print Corporation. Paul?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. Thank you for having me here this evening. I am presenting a special event application for Angel Prints Corporation. The applicant is here this evening for questions as well. So the application, the special event request before you this evening is for a remembrance walk for infant lost and bereaved families. The event date is Saturday, October 14th, 2023. The event setup time is 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., with the event time being 10 a.m. to noon. The breakdown is noon to 12:30 p.m. It is scheduled to be here at the Town Hall facility where it was hosted last year. The expected activities include an awareness walk, a ceremony, and a windmill garden. The next slide demonstrates the proposed layouts very similar to the previous event that was held last year. So the route will stay within the campus grounds. It will utilize the existing sidewalk on Arundel Avenue, will not require any closure of Arundel Avenue. Board consideration when to approve an event includes nonprofit status or public purpose, the applicant's substantial presence in the community, historical or positive contributions to the community. The event stimulates or encourages community support of nonprofit or civic activities. The event's consistency with the plans, goals, and policies of the event, potential for damage to property of harm to people, and the ability of the town to support the proposed activities, and the ability of the organization to implement the event. The request also included a fee waiver. The board consideration for fee waivers is as followed. Without reading all of them individually, the application does meet each area of recognition. The event being open to the public does come with a recognition that participation in the walk will be fee-based, with the revenue going towards the nonprofit support. The specific request of the town is to use the municipal complex for the town to provide folding chairs, and as well as for the town to waive the fees that are requested. The expected town expense is $206 to support. I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions from members of the board? Commissioner Miles?
On the chart, I didn't see where the windmill garden would be located at. I didn't see that.
Yes. So the discussion with the applicant was that we really need to get a good gauge of the participation in, like, I guess, the sign up for their awareness walk to make sure that we pick a location that makes sense, that it doesn't, like, we don't want to put it in the middle of the lawn if it isn't gonna, look significant, if that makes sense. And so we identified the area close to the main entrance of Town Hall where there's an existing sitting bench as one option. It will really depend on the number of windmills, and we would want to solidify that a little bit closer. But we do expect it to be a low impact on the facility, similar to what you've seen with the windmills for domestic violence in the past.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Laux?
As I recall, or my memory serves me, we did waive the fees on the first event as kind of a seed funding to get them started. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm remembering that correctly.
Yes, the board did authorize this event last year, and the board also waived fees for this event previously.
Commissioner Harrison?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Commissioner Clark?
No, no questions.
Commissioner Baxter?
Sometimes I think you're just going to keep on going, and then you don't. I'm like, all right. I definitely think that the complex rental fee should be waived, certainly, this year. My only thought is that I'd like to hear from the board what they think about the staffing hours of $206, especially since the walk is going to be fee-based.
Commissioner Miles?
I think for me, we're still kind of in the seed phase, I guess we'd say. I call it trying to get things, that partnership with the town. So I'm okay with waiving everything for the most part, and just kind of like to give them incentive to keep coming back. And yeah, last year I know we participated, it was a great success to bring them back, and eventually they're going to get, I believe, where they can pay some of these fees that they're looking to be waived. That's what we're hoping for. So to give them that foundation that they need to move forward and enhance that program, I'm okay with waiving everything.
Commissioner Clark?
I agree with Quinn.
Commissioner Harrison?
I agree.
Commissioner Laux? Agreed. Any other questions, comments?
I'd just like to understand, at what point would we say it's time for them to take over either the staff hour fee or the entire fee, just so I can kind of understand where we're coming from?
I think that for myself, as a nonprofit organization that's bringing awareness to our community for what they are bringing awareness for, I think that a nominal fee of $200 or even the $806 is what the town would be out of, so to speak. And I don't think that that is too much of a burden for our town to support our citizens, especially ones that invest so much into our community as Angel Prince does. I think that it is commendable that they are continuing. Last year, when they came before the board, I remember their sources and programs to our community.
Miles?
I'd like to extend that. I think the applicant's in the house tonight, correct, in the building? I would like to extend that opportunity for him to come up and speak, please.
Absolutely.
And kind of elaborate.
Good evening. Thank you for Mayor York and Board of Commissioners for allowing me the time to speak. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I personally just want to get, if you have an opportunity, like Commissioner Baxter just posed a question, in that time frame, we know, like I said, we're in that seed planet. Is there somewhere you foresee yourself in the future, kind of like being able to take some of this, or what if you can answer a question a little bit, your own insight?
Well, absolutely.
Thank you.
We definitely see ourselves creating a bigger footprint in the community, as well as in Wake County, and expanding beyond the borders of Wake County. We've been able to make huge strides since last year. This last month, April, made 1 year that we've been an organization. So since the last awareness walk, we've been able to make huge strides in advancing our mission and just becoming a mainstay in the community. We've made numerous partnerships with both local businesses and local town organizations, as well as abroad throughout Wake County with different organizations that have the like-minded attitude of doing positive things in the community. We've had true success, but by no means are we satisfied. And we definitely look to be an even greater asset to the town of Zebulon.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to note the resolution that's before you, 2023-25. When you make your motion to adopt, you'll need to specify if you want to waive no fees, partial fees, or all fees.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-25 with waiving all associated fees.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Miles. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll vote, starting with Commissioner Baxter.
In favor.
Commissioner Miles.
Favor.
Commissioner Clark.
Favor.
Commissioner Harrison.
Favor.
Commissioner Laux.
Favor.
Resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public hearing, the fetching post annexation ordinance 2023-41. I now declare the public hearing open. Could we get a report from the planning board?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. The first of the public hearings tonight is actually in response to a special use permit that was approved several years ago for the fetching post. Once again, with all annexations, the standards of approval are, as the owner approved, recommended approval of the annexation. Can services be provided? What's the cost analysis associated with it? And does it accommodate public health, safety, and welfare? The parcel in question is just over 7 acres and is a landlocked parcel, which would be a satellite annexation located at 571 Barbie Street. The owner and the applicant are the same party, and the site is already constructed with a dog kennel that was approved as a special use permit a couple years back. The site is currently located within our extraterritorial jurisdiction. As I noted, SUP 2019-03 noted specifically, an annexation petition must be filed and the property annexed by the town of Zebulon prior to the certificate of occupancy by Wake County. The property owner is currently operating under a temporary certificate of occupancy pending the outcome of the decision before you tonight. Standards, once again, owner approval, service can be provided, cost return analysis, public health, safety, welfare. In this circumstance, staff does recommend acceptance of public comment. Following that, staff recommends approval of the proposed ordinance, finding that the standards are met. And with that, I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions from the board? Commissioner Baxter?
No, I'm just glad to see that they have submitted for annexation.
Commissioner Miles?
Same here. I'm hearing great things in the community about this. I've been excited.
Commissioner Clark?
No questions.
Commissioner Harrison?
No question.
Commissioner Laux?
No questions.
Do we have a motion to adopt?
Sir, point of or clarification, you need to accept public comment as it is a public hearing before a decision can be rendered.
Does the applicant wish to speak? Hearing none, is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone wish to speak in opposition? Is there anyone that wish to speak neither for or against? If there's no further public discussion, I declare the public hearing closed. Now, is there a motion to adopt?
I hereby move to approve ordinance 2023-41 for the annexation of Wake County Pen 2705-100745 into the Zebulon corporate bit boundaries, finding that the standards of section 2.2.2.g are met.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? We have a roll vote starting with Commissioner Laux,
In favor?
Commissioner Harrison,
Favor.
Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Miles, Commissioner Baxter.
Approve.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next is Zero Parks Village and Road Annexation, ordinance 2023-42. I declare the public hearing open. Mike, would you give us a report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The annexation in this case, once again, same standards, owner approval, service can be provided, cost analysis, public health, safety, welfare. You probably heard me say this many times tonight. The parcel in question is a 21.85 acre parcel located between US 64 and Parks Village with frontage on Old Bund Road. The applicant is D.R. Horton, and the owner is BC Joiner LLC. The property in question is located within our extraterritorial jurisdiction, and as you can see that there are utilities in close proximity. Specifically, it's a little hard to see on here, but there is a sewer that ends right at the corner of the parcel. The applicant's intent is for a single-family residential development. However, the standards are not applicable to the use intent or proposed actions on the parcel. They are specifically owner approval, services can be provided, cost return analysis, public health, safety, welfare. Staff recommends acceptance of the public comment, and then staff can recommend approval of the proposed annexation if the board finds that the applicable standards are met. And with that, I'm available if you have any questions.
Questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Miles?
So I'm to my understanding, researching that the land has already been sold, so is it currently still owned by the Joiner LLC, or am I taking that wrong?
My understanding is under contract to be sold, that typically those contracts are subject to acquisition of vested rights or completion of a development approval before the property actually closes.
Okay. Speaking to the previous landowner, I just want to verify, make sure we're doing it the right way, that it's already sold. So I don't know the documentation for as Wake County real estate has been established, but that land has already been sold. So I just want to make sure we do document that. I don't know if that's going to be an issue or something.
The documentation that was provided at the time of request had to go through a sufficiency review, and I believe a copy of that, as prepared by the town clerk, indicated that the owner of record, in accordance with Wake County, was the owner of record at that time, and all the signatures matched up and were all in accordance.
Okay. All right. A resident area, just want to verify, a resident in the area showed me the proposed development. The developer shows with us in the plans there were 45 units. Do we know exactly how many units and why there's a difference between the proposal?
Yeah, sorry, I apologize. I looked at an initial draft as opposed to the latest draft of the plan. It is 45 units, so the cost analysis actually shows an increase in potential future tax revenue for the town.
45 units is definitely what it's going
That's
to be.
correct. And I confirmed that with the attorney that the applicant hired as well.
Okay, that was a question that the resident had when I spoke to those guys out there. They said some were 38, then 45. I just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Commissioner Baxter?
So that means that the revenue per year that's going to be generated is going to be larger than 46,000? Okay. Okay.
Was there any other questions of staff?
None for me.
Commissioner Laux?
Yeah, I have one question, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but if this is developed as a subdivision, where are the entrance and exits? Would they be on Parks Village Road, or would they be on Old Bun Road?
That is something that's available on our interactive development map. The current plan is up there for review. I confirmed that before I came up today. But those components are not subject to an annexation request.
I'm concerned a little bit about the traffic and safety and welfare, et cetera. That's why the question.
Yeah, there's one entrance off of Old Bun, I believe. No.
It's according to the plans, Larry, if I can, according to plans that I saw yesterday, final plans that they have given with the 45 units, it's pretty much coming off Old Bun Road. The main entrance is going to be the Old Bun Road, kind of coming in and doing like I would say like a J-shaped, L-shaped type thing. So it's pretty much just one part. Old Bun Road is that main entrance.
Yeah, because it sets right there at the intersection.
Yeah, right there.
My common sense is telling me traffic at the intersection will be far safer than another entrance exit on Old Bun Road.
That's the plans I saw. I took a look at yesterday was entering on Old Bun Road.
Yes, one access off of Old Bun Road, and then one access into the adjacent residential subdivision. As well as this is also being reviewed by a third-party engineer that understands traffic way better than I do as part of our technical review committee.
We don't have to take a motion. Take a move on.
Old Bun is already
That's a
heavily, heavily traveled. It's problematic annexing something that's just going to add significant traffic to an already beleaguered road.
We are not supposed to consider
No, but, I mean,
that in an
it's in
annexation.
here, so-
Well, it's still, should not be consideration for the annexation.
What I'm trying to get an understanding. Sometimes we acknowledge it and sometimes we don't. So it's like, is that a consensus that we're going to acknowledge each time that we don't worry about the development, or we take it and say, okay, we use it as need on a need basis to kind of decide which way we want to go? Is that how to work?
Well, there'll be time, I would think, when they present the plans for the development for us to discuss that. But for right now, we need to stick to,
But this isn't going to come back before us, correct?
Sorry, I could not hear your
This
comment.
will not be coming back before us.
No, this will be approved by our technical review committee in accordance with the Unified Development Ordinance, which was approved by the Board of Commissioners and effective January 1st, 2020.
that's fine.
So if we have an issue with that Old Bun entrance, what were your recommendations, Mike?
To modify the Unified Development Ordinance to take certain considerations regarding traffic accessing onto major arterials as part of a text amendment at a future meeting.
Thank you, Mike.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Laux?
None.
Commissioner Harrison? Commissioner Clark?
None?
None.
Commissioner Baxter?
None.
Does the applicant wish to speak?
Good evening, Mayor York and Commissioners. Just here on behalf of the applicant, like Mike said, we're here for an annexation. This is a by right development. It's already in your ETJ. It's a conservation development, preserving over 50% open space, and we're going to provide that, again, like Mike just showed up on the screen, that connection to the adjacent subdivision, frontage improvements on Old Bun Road, and we respectfully ask that you bring these 20 acres into your corporate limits so these folks can pay your property taxes and vote in your elections. Thank you so much.
Questions for the applicant? Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Hearing none. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Hearing none. Is there anyone who wishes to speak neither for or against that would like to make a comment?
We have one.
Come to the podium. State your name and address, please.
Name and address?
Yes.
My name is V.R. Brantley, Jr., 304 Rosemary Lane, Greenville, South Carolina. I don't know whether Beverly and I are distant or cousins, so hello to you. I came specifically here for this because of my great-great-grandfather, Sherwood Brantley, is buried in our family cemetery on Old Bun Road. And it's across the street on Old Bun Road from where this subdivision is going in. He originally owned most of the land that Zebulon is on. He gave the land for his very far-thinking man. He gave the land for Shaw and St. Augustine in Raleigh. The house that on Old Bun Road was built in 1861 by him before he went off to the Civil War. And my mother and father inherited this from my great aunt, and we're all going to be buried out there on Old Bun Road. But the traffic, I've been coming to these meetings now for 20 odd years. So we've had a trust. This isn't a family trust. Since 1983, and I've been one of the trustees managing this trust. And the traffic, there have been no repairs. I listened to a DOT engineer in a meeting here 25 years ago talk about how the speed limit was 35 miles an hour on Old Bun Road, and that they had done all these improvements. I can assure you, except for the improvements that have been made where a subdivision has been put in where one of my neighbors sold his tobacco land for the subdivisions, nothing has been done on Old Bun Road. And I may go to my grave and still nothing be done. I sent a letter in to one of your staff last night, about the concerns about that. I think that if you have an entrance, it should never be on Old Bun Road. That's why Jimmy Joyner didn't have an entrance on the Old Bun Road. The line of sight at Parks Village Road and Old Bun Road, with a bridge up there, it's impossible. If a car's coming, and these cars come through that 70, 80 miles an hour. We had a truck, when Richard Joyner sold his property in the subdivision over there, one of the big trucks came in and tore up our gate. We talked to the builder over there, never got any compensation, they just destroyed it. And when you're driving down, when you come on this road, you cannot see anything. I recommend that the DOT come in and really make a careful analysis. Being an engineering background, yeah, I think it's assured you've got such a high volume And it's, you know, you can figure a factor like in planning 1.5 vehicles per home. But you've got, like in the greater Zebulon area, and I don't know if the gentleman I talked to is in the room or not, but you've got about 4,000 homes under construction. And so the massive traffic that you're inheriting is going to be unbelievable. And the point, I guess, that we don't really oppose subdivision going in, but we oppose the traffic, the dangers of that. My grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren, I don't want them to get killed by somebody along this road. And I'll shut up with my oral diarrhea, but I would like for you to please make sure you edit this subdivision where the entrance isn't on Old Button Road, because surely you'll have a problem before it's over. And with that, I thank you.
Much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishes to speak for, neither for or against? Like to make a comment? Hearing none, if there's no further discussion, I declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion to adopt?
I hereby move to approve ordinance 2023-42 for the annexation of Wake County, PN 270-670-9420 into the Zebulon corporate boundaries, finding that the standards of section 2.2.g are met.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
The motion would die for lack of a second.
Thank you. Motion fails. So motion does not pass. All right.
Clarification, is there a motion to deny or to table, or what is the proposed action from the board?
Maybe I make a motion to table this annexation until our June work session. No? Till our June board meeting. Sorry.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table. Discussion?
At that time, the June section, what is it going to bring back different than what we already see now?
I would like to look at the text amendments and look at what we can maybe look at as far as making sure that the annexation is what we as a town are able to withstand, hold.
For clarification, North Carolina general law has this thing called permit of choice. Once an application is submitted and is effective, the ordinance is locked in at that point. Any text amendment to the ordinance after that is not applicable to that particular development. That's why we have several developments that are coming before you that don't require the adoption of the utility allocation policy. So even if the town took action and made that ordinance amendment today, it is not applicable to anything that has current accepted application.
Correct, but I'm fine with thinking about this a little bit more.
I think we are, well, I am.
So is there anything we can do to like that entrance, that Old Bund entrance? We have no limitation, anything we can do with that, Mike, or no?
No. The applicant meets the Unified Development Ordinance, which is the laws that govern development within the town of Zebulon. So realistically, if the applicant meets the ordinance and accommodates the improvements that are required in your transportation plan and other applicable documents, that's the regulations that are in place at this time.
Okay.
So do you have what we need from the board, or?
There's a motion and a second. There hasn't been a vote, but yes, I have direction on,
You have direction?
yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion to table to June 1st, regular scheduled meeting? We have a roll vote. Commissioner Laux?
In favor.
Commissioner Harrison?
Favor.
Commissioner Clark?
Opposed.
Commissioner Miles? Favor. Commissioner Baxter?
In favor.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next, OUS 64 Highway Annexation, public hearing.
Okay, this is the third of 4 annexation public hearings tonight.
I need to open the public hearing. Declare the public hearing open for OUS 64 Highway Annexation, Ordinance 2023-43. Report from planning.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Once again, same standards as we discussed previously. The owners recommend approval. In this case, it's 2 owners over 3 parcels. Services can be provided, cost return analysis, as well as public health, safety, welfare. This used to be 1 parcel. It was part of a rezoning request about a year and a half, 2 years ago. It is spread out over 3 parcels, however, now it's been broken into. The middle parcel has been since sold off. The owners are also the applicants for all 3 parcels, and total acreage is approximately 10.5 acres. It is located within our ETJ and is immediately adjacent to our corporate limits, which would make this a contiguous annexation. There is utilities nearby, and the property owners and the developers are finalizing the plans on how to best serve, but they have a couple options regarding providing service to these sites. It's worth noting that we currently have a development approval for that center parcel for Tractor Supply, which is looking to potentially move forward with construction once final determination regarding either sewer easements or extension is provided. The standards, once again, owner approvals, service can be provided, cost return, public health, safety, welfare. Staff recommends acceptance of public comment, and then staff recommends approval of the annexation as requested if the board finds that the standards of 2.2.2G have been met. And with that, I'm available if you have any questions.
Comments from the board. Commissioner Laux?
None.
Commissioner Harrison?
No.
Commissioner Clark?
No.
Commissioner Miles?
None at this moment.
Commissioner Baxter?
None.
Does the applicant wish to speak? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone who wishes to speak neither for or against, who would like to make a comment? If there's no further discussion, I declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion to adopt?
I I hereby move to approve ordinance 2023-43 for the annexation of Wake County PIN 270-587, 917-8, 270-597, 3150, and 270-596, 8943 into the Zebulon corporate boundaries, finding that the standards of section 2.2.2G are met.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
A second. A discussion? Commissioner Miles?
One quick question before, right here. Has the planning board taken a look at this?
Board doesn't take action or make recommendations on annexations, no.
Okay.
The planning board did take a look at the original rezoning from a couple of years ago and you recommended approval. I don't recall the vote count for that, but it was rezoned to heavy commercial to accommodate a range of uses, specifically per the request of Tractor Supply.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments from the board? A roll vote, starting with Commissioner Baxter.
Favor.
Commissioner Miles. Favor. Commissioner Clark.
Favor.
Commissioner Harrison.
Favor.
Commissioner Laux.
In favor.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next, we have the Walpurdy annexation. I declare the public hearing now open. Report from the planning board.
Okay, this is the last of the annexations, I promise, at least for tonight. This one is going to be a little bit different. I'll explain the details here in a moment. As with all annexations, the same standards go through. The sufficiency review is included in your packet to show the applicant or the owner has recommended approval of this, that the service can provide, cost, return, and public health, safety, and welfare. The parcel in question looks familiar because you saw a joint public hearing regarding this request a couple months ago. It is for 0 Weaver's Pond Drive. The applicant is Weaver's Pond Development Group. The owner is the Walpurdy Family LLC. Total acreage is just around 43.5 acres. It is located in in the Wake County jurisdiction. This is where this one is different. If the board is going to recommend approval of the conditional rezoning, which we'll go over those details following this presentation and the public hearing for the annexation, the two motions need to happen concurrently. Because this is not in our corporate limits or our extraterritorial jurisdiction, at this moment in time, you do not have jurisdictional authority to zone parcel within Wake County. However, if you do annex this in, you want to assign a zoning designation to it. The applicant has requested a conditional zoning designation, which we'll go into as part of the next presentation. I also have both motions back to back, as always in the affirmative, if you vote to proceed that way following the conditional zoning presentation. Once again, owner has requested approval. Services can be provided, cost return analysis, as well as public health, safety, and welfare. Staff recommends acceptance of public comment, and the staff can recommend approval of the ordinance 2023-40 if the board finds that the applicable section of the UDO is met. Once again, the rezoning of the property is required if the parcel is going to be annexed in, and the annexation vote must occur before the conditional zoning would occur. I'm available if you have any questions, and after the public comment, we can roll into the conditional rezoning presentation.
Questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Laux?
Question about water pressure. We get several reports that we already have water pressure issues in Weaver's Pond. Most homes have supplemental pumps. Adding an additional 85 homes deeper, what kind of water pressure issues we may have out there if we have a major fire, or all these homes have to require pumps just to get water up to the second level?
The developer is present tonight and would be more likely to be the party to respond to those technical questions.
I'll address it to them. Thank you.
Commissioner Harrison? Commissioner Clark?
No questions.
Commissioner Miles?
No questions.
Commissioner Baxter?
No questions.
Does the applicant wish to speak?
Mr. Mayor, members of the commissioners, Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group, appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak on the annexation. Really don't have a whole lot to add. I know that the kind of the meat and potatoes of the of what is before you tonight relative to this matter is going to be covered in the zoning, and so we'll cover that at that time. Commissioner Laux, to answer your question, I'm going to ask Gray Berry with Weaver's Pond Development to answer your question relative to water pressure.
Thank you, Jason. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. To answer that question specifically, because like Jason said, I think most of the conversation is going to be in the rezoning. We would be adding the booster pumps as they have in Weaver's Pond to these homes, and we believe that the water pressure would be sufficient for fire protection and to supply the homes with adequate water.
Be a single boost pump for the whole subdivision or pumps in each house?
Be individual per each house, yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone who wishes to speak neither for or against? Would like to make a comment? If there's no further discussion, I declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion to adopt?
One moment, he needs to present the next piece.
Yeah. If, once again, to provide clarification, this is related to a zoning request due to it is located within the Wake County jurisdiction. So if the board was to approve the annexation, staff requests that you also zone the property to apply applicable land use regulations to it. So staff's recommendation at this point in time is to proceed through the presentation for the conditional rezoning before the board makes a determination on either of the items.
Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The standards for conditional rezoning are found in section 2.2.6K of our UDO. They start with the health, safety, welfare, which is the general principle behind any land use regulation, that the uses and activities are appropriate for the land in which they're going to be proposed. In this situation, it is residential adjacent to residential. The key difference is this residential slightly larger lots than the adjacent residential. That the request is reasonable and in the public interest, and that the applicant is provided a concept plan consistent with the regulations within our Unified Development Ordinance. And then there is the other relevant factors condition, specifically that the board deems relevant to the applicable request. The property is, the applicant is Weaver's Pond Development LLC. The property owner is Walpurdy Family LLC. As I noted, it is a new parcel that was cut out from the original as part of an exempt subdivision, and the address is 0 Weaver's Pond at this time. Total acreage is just over 43.5 acres. The current zoning is R40W, which is approximately a little less than 1 acre, and it's located adjacent to the watershed. That's why the W is there. The applicant is proposing residential neighborhood conditional, or R4 conditional. The proposed site plan requires the conditional zoning to move forward. However, the applicant is not asking for deviations from the ordinance, but proposing conditions to provide certain or additional certainty towards what will end up being approved in the end. Everything from architectural conditions, which we'll go into, to particular amenities. This will change the zoning, as I noted. It requires annexation for it to occur, and the uses will be single-family residential. The concept plan, as shown, is all single-family detached residential dwellings. There are no townhomes or apartments or any other primary uses being proposed as this site. It's going to consist of 87 lots, which is a reduction from the original proposal, which was greater than 100 lots. This creates an average acres of 2 units per acre, which is consistent with our R2 zoning, even knowing that the applicant is requesting a greater zoning district. They are proposing 2 connections into the adjacent Weaver's Pond Drive at Weaver's Pond Drive and Yulee Drive, as well as greenway connections to Weaver's Pond. The architectural conditions are a commitment to the residential guidelines that are found in the ordinance, minimum of 2-car garage with carriage-style adornments. And you can see those, these brackets as well as handles and the windows. Side-loaded on a minimum of 20% of the units that are being constructed, as well as wraparound front porches on a minimum of 20% of the units. The garage doors will be recessed behind the front plane of the home, and in some situations that might be the front porch, which creates more of a pedestrian orientation for the development. Cement siding will be provided with brick and stone. They're not going to use vinyl. Not only is that an improved maintenance enhancement, but it's also an improved safety enhancement. The cement board is less flammable than the vinyl. And then a rear patio or deck, a minimum of 100 square feet. Other conditions that are going above and beyond what we require in the ordinance is the entire lot will be sodded. We see a lot of situations where developers will do seed and straw or hydro seed. Well, it doesn't add a lot of additional topsoil, where sod creates that stable foundation to prevent erosion and runoff. Amenities are going to be constructed, which include the dog park, walking trails, and all of these are going to be maintained by the homeowners association. While there are amenities and recreational elements available to the folks who are going to be living in Weaver's Point, they are not going to have to be maintained by the town's Parks and Recreation Department. The HOA originally proposed a limitation of no more than 20% of the dwellings shall be rented. After the planning board meeting and the joint public hearing, they've agreed to reduce that maximum to 10% of the units will have the rental maximum of 10%. Standards, once again, health, safety, welfare with all these, appropriate for the location in which it's being applied, reasonable and in the public interest, concept plan showing consistency with the regulations of our UDO, and other relevant factors as deemed appropriate by the Board of Commissioners. The Planning Board did vote 4-3 to recommend denial. They were citing specifically condition number 3 might not have been met, inquiring about a potential access drive from this development through Weaver's Pond into Farrell Meadows. This area is primarily environmentally sensitive, and if you have questions about that, the applicant can speak further about the details of why that didn't occur. Staff recommendation is to approve the request as submitted, finding that's consistent with goal number 1 and policies B, E, and H of your comprehensive land use plan, as well as the housing and neighborhood section of the comprehensive land use plan. And finding that section, the standards in section 2.2.6K of our Unified Development Ordinance have been met. I'm available if you have any questions. Additionally, as you know, the developer is available. Once again, the annexation and the conditional zoning do have to occur back to back in determination. If you do decide to approve the conditional zoning, the annexation approval must occur first. If you are not going to approve the conditional zoning, staff does not recommend annexation. We do not want parcels that do not have land use or regulations applied. I'm available if you have any questions.
From the board, Commissioner Miles.
One quick question, Mike. I see here in the notes that we won't need an additional police officer do this development. What kind of strain do you think they would put on Public Works for us?
I would defer to the Public Works Director to answer that question.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. We do not think 86 additional homes will adversely affect Public Works and its operations. As you may recall, trash and recycling services are outsourced to waste industry, so they'll be added to them, and then we'll be only picking up yard waste and leaves every other week. So we do not think it'd be an adverse effect on Public Works.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Yes, sir.
Do you have more?
Yes, go ahead. Mike, can you explain how the staff and the planning board have opposite recommendations? Can you explain that for me?
The staff looks at specifically the standards in the Unified Development Ordinance, is not taking outside factors or opinions or beliefs into consideration. It is what are the regulations as drawn in the UDO, and what does it say in the Comprehensive Land Use Plan, Transportation Plan, Parks and Recreation Plan, as well as the 2030 Strategic Plan. That is the foundation for all of our decisions.
I'd also like to extend an opportunity for Mr. Berry. I think we spoke last week. We talked about Stockfield Lane. If you kind of elaborate that interest, that back interest, we discussed a little bit, the reason for not going.
Yes, sir. We did speak about that. You're referring to the connection at Farrell Meadows?
Right.
Yes, sir. So we went back and looked, and as Mike said, it is an environmentally sensitive area. And kind of as we spoke last week, the Weaver's Pond Master Plan, which was approved well before my time, eons ago, came with certain stipulations and requirements. And one of those is open space, which is calculated in that area. So impervious surface, such as a street, would directly retract from that open space area. It also, I believe, we're at the maximum amount of wetland impacts because there's the Corps of Engineers, DWR, allows a certain number of wetland impacts per each community. And I believe Weaver's Pond would exceed that if we were to impact that environmental sensitive area.
Okay. Thank you. And one last thing, we also spoke briefly. I know this is kind of like another subdivision that you guys, developers coming in, has citizens come to me questioning about the HOA process. So if you could address that, what we kind of discussed a little bit.
Yes, sir. I would be more than happy to. As we discussed, and I told you I thought I'd have some information, kind of just a little background on the Weaver's Pond HOA, because I do represent the development company as well as the applicant. This project here tonight has no affiliation with Weaver's Pond. As a community, the HOAs would be separate. But just to kind of address some of the concerns, the big issue is that Weaver's Pond is just such a massive master plan community, and when it's all said and done, it'll be totaling up to 900 homes. And so I do understand some of the concerns from the citizens, the residents who have been there, you know, from 2013, 2014. But the reality is we've had to subsidize that HOA in support of the pool, in support of the maintenance of the common space. There's all these things that require money, and if we had just turned it over way back when, those residents would have been in a financially precarious situation. So what we've done is we've offered substantial supplements to the reserves of the HOA. We've done substantial improvements. This year, we have installed additional cameras at the pool parking lot area. We've revised the pool contract for 2023 to include two full-time lifeguards on duty during operational hours, excluding the early free swim hours. We've installed street cameras in accordance with the town and the police department to help monitor that area. We do look at on-street parking. The covenants do not allow for overnight on-street parking. In 2002, the DMV rescinded management companies and HOA's abilities to check license plates to find out the vehicle owner. So it has become immensely more difficult to police that because of that new regulation in place. And we do have a HOA meeting scheduled for July 12th, 2023 at 6 p.m. I also wanted to note, as I went back and discussed with the management company, and I understand it can feel like we're not doing anything on the HOA for Weavers Pond, but since January 1st of 2022, we've issued over 130 violations, parking, maintenance, what have you, but we are actively out there. The management company routinely drives through the community. They have direct relationships with very vigilant residents and get reports, and that's the best way we have to police the HOA and the Weavers Pond community is through those vigilant residents. But beyond that, this would be a whole different animal because of the size, 87 lots. It's not going to take a decade to build this thing out, so there wouldn't be, I don't believe, as much frustration with the HOA on this one because we would be able to build it out so much quicker than Weavers Pond.
So with that said, you said July 12th. Is there somewhere in the fourth, I mean, like I said, I know we're dealing with two different developments. Is there somewhere you see in the future that you will be turning this one over? That would, the citizens that I get now, when you stand before me now, they're saying, okay, how can you approve something that these potentially can take the same path that we're currently going down with the citizens getting the HOA? That is one of the biggest concerns. Is there someone in the future that can foresee turning that over to Weavers Pond and then kind of addressing that a little bit for the new development if it's approved?
Yes, sir. So thank you for prompting me on that. That was kind of what I wanted to allude to about us supplementing the HOA over all these years. But the covenants right now state that we would not transition the HOA over to the residents until the final sale of a lot or 20 years from the first sale, which was probably 12, 15 years ago. But that being said, I believe we're on track to meet that final sale of the lot by the end of this year. So I've spoke with the management company. We will begin over the next month or two appointing certain residents of Weavers Pond onto the board to help with the transition, how to monitor the HOA, how the funds work, those sorts of things. So we have had that conversation, and in the coming months, there will be a few select residents appointed to the board, and then when that transition takes place, end of this year, early next year, we believe they'll be in a good spot to continue on without our guidance.
How would that selection of the residents be done? If you could elaborate from that, please.
So that's a little above my pay grade. Again, we have a management company that kind of handles the day-to-day operations, issuing the violations, riding through, monitoring things, and the manager's name is Lynn Peed, and she assures me she has 4 or 5 different residents who she's in direct contact with routinely, and they help her monitor the community, and she thinks they would be great fits. I think that's also something we can discuss at the July 12th HOA meeting. If, I don't know if we want to get into a whole nomination, but I do believe there's some opportunities for different folks to step up if they really want to serve and learn how HOAs work and get involved before the responsibility is solely on their shoulders.
So potentially at the end of this year, they could have HOA in that Weavers Pond sector.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Harris.
Thank you. So with you said that the HOAs will be separated. So will PPM, who is over the current Weavers Pond, will they not be the managing company for this if we were to get this new development?
So given the kind of how early on we are, we haven't gotten that far yet for this new HOA. We brought PPM in because Weavers Pond is so large and we're not a very large development company, so there was just no way realistically we could manage the HOA on our own. This one might be different. Again, I can't say for certain either way.
With the additional resources that you all as the developer have put into the community, the current community, as far as the extra lifeguards that are at the pool that started last year. Thank you for that. And the extra security cameras and all of those things. Are you all saying that you are going to be invested just as much in this next development should we decide to do that?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. I've maintained this throughout this entire process. You know, like I've said earlier, Weaver's Pond has taken so long to build out. We aren't looking to come in here and do a quick project and get out and move down the street. We've been invested in Zebulon. We've been here for a very long time. We love the community and we want to help continue it grow in the right direction. And we truly believe this project that we proposed is the next logical step in that growth. So I believe in the town of Zebulon and want to partner with you all rather than just be a customer, so to speak. I look at this more as a partnership, and we really want to help Zebulon grow in that right direction.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Baxter.
I have some trepidation with this whole HOA discussion. I have heard so many negative things from so many residents of Weaver's Pond regarding HOA problems. We've lost residents that have moved out of Zebulon because of HOA issues. And I'm struggling to believe that the HOA will be managed differently with this new development. It's problematic. I don't like seeing residents leave because of HOA issues that remain unresolved. As far as pump stations go, this is another thing that I take issue with because I know some of the residents are extremely upset with how loud the pumps are when they're just trying to get water into their house for showers or running the dishwasher. And so I was honestly hoping that you were going to provide one large pump station instead of individual pumps at each house. My third area of concern is that all of the traffic from this development is going to be snaking through Weaver's Pond, a development that is already feeling quite a crush of car traffic because of its size. And finally, I need to understand how this development being split off is protecting the watershed.
That was a lot, so I'll try to work
That's okay,
through
I
them.
can go back over them one at a time, but those are in a nutshell are my concerns.
Yeah, I'll work backwards. The watershed question, we had a topographic survey done, and this section where the boundary line has been drawn is outside of the watershed. So that's why the tract has been subdivided.
Okay.
So that's already in place. This particular 43 acres is not currently in the watershed.
Okay, great. The street?
Yes.
Not,
So,
providing.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And so that was the master plan that I sent all the commissioners, I believe, towards the end of last week. That was one of our big arguments, was that we've always anticipated development on this property. You know, we have stub streets going into the property. They've had signs on them that said future development. And we intentionally developed portions of Weaver's Pond to accommodate the increased traffic flow. And on the legend, if you looked at it, the two stub streets going into Weaver's Pond are 35 feet back-to-back curb, and that is a substantially larger street size than what is typically required. I also believe that with the two new access points through Pierce's Landing and through Weaver's Ridge to access 96 and Pierce's Road, those effects of traffic calming have not been fully realized yet because they are so new. I can't speak exactly to the timeline of the Pierce's Landing ingress-egress point, but I do know that the Weaver's Ridge ingress egress was not paved until probably 6 months ago. And we've already seen traffic flow pick up that way, which I do believe is alleviating some of the traffic that you may see on Pippin or is reported on Pippin. We also went out, and we have our traffic expert with us here tonight if you have any technical questions. But after the joint public hearing in March, we heard the concerns about traffic. And we, although we weren't required, kind of in light of this new text amendment that y'all are considering tonight about the TIAs, we went ahead and did that. We went ahead and did the physical counts in the real time, and the traffic counts came back to show that the TIA that we submitted back when we were proposing 105 lots, which at that time for 105 lots, no improvements were deemed necessary. But now we've cut back to 87 lots, and we have the real-time data which shows that the numbers used for that TIA are actually less substantially than what we were estimating in that TIA. So we truly feel that the traffic issue, given all the work we've done, is not an issue, that it will be safe, it will be in the public interest. As I said, I'm in Weaver's Pond most days, and I drive through the community, I work there, I'm there at peak hours, and I don't see the traffic inside the Weaver's Pond community as I believe others say that they do. There are cars parked on the street sporadically. That's very difficult to police, but as I said, our HOA is doing the best that they can. But I think it works well. There's 2 new ingress egress points that haven't been fully realized, and we have planned for this, so we've made streets substantially wider to be able to handle that additional traffic.
And then you can speak to the HOA and the problems that constantly pour into us as commissioners.
Yes,
I just want to make sure that we are not going to be seeing that same level of frustration from residents as we see currently.
I hear you, and I can't speak as much to the entire lifespan of the Weaver's Pond HOA because it, like I said, predates me a bit. I can say that I don't believe there's any HOA in the country where every resident is fully satisfied and happy with how things are run. But I do hear the concerns, and it's made me get involved more in the Weaver's Pond HOA. And as you can see, I'm a younger guy. I'm looking toward the future. I believe in Zebulon. I want to help him grow. So I want to learn from the mistakes made here and truly build a better HOA in this community, because I would be the president of the HOA in Weaver's Point until it is turned over to the residents at that time. But I can't speak to the mistakes that were made or the issues fully that have happened in Weaver's Pond. I can say that COVID, I think, didn't help with meetings getting canceled, not being able to meet in person. I don't think the Zoom HOA meetings went very well or was as effective as they could have been. But we're willing and open to hearing comments. We had the neighborhood meeting last summer and discussed directly with the residents of Weaver's Pond. It was held in the Weaver's Pond pool parking lot. And so we tried our best to discuss with them at that time, and we can continue to work to get better on that front.
And can you speak a little bit about the concern about pump stations?
Yes, ma'am. So that's just pretty standard since it's in all of Weaver's Pond. We figured we would just continue working in that direction. They've seemed to work well up to this point. I do understand the noise issue, but we go in all these units, and I believe it can be kind of varied across the board. At this time, we think what's best for this project, given it's only 87 homes, would be the individual pump stations for each household.
You.
Thank you.
Can you give a little elaboration? Why not just purchase land off 96 Highway where you have a right-of-way, a totally different entrance? What's keeping your development from doing that?
Well, so the big one is we wanted the opportunity to partner with the town of Zebulon on this project. And just for your information, the parent property to what we've subdivided, the subject property, does not extend all the way to Highway 96. There is another property that separates the parent parcel from Highway 96, as well as, I believe it's Farrell Road. So this is entirely landlocked with only an access through Weaver's Pond. We, like I said, wanted to partner with the town. We wanted to seize the opportunity to do another community inside the corporate boundaries of the town of Zebulon. There was consideration, and I believe there still is within our company, that if we don't get this approval here tonight, we would go back with the landowner because they're willing to sell all 200 acres. And although it would be about an acre lot on well and septic, we would still have the opportunity to develop, 150 to 180 homes, and it would be directly through Wake County. We wanted to do something with the town of Zebulon. That's why we've chosen this path. And I hope we can work that out.
So, Mike, can you help me understand? Okay, I hear the 96, the Stockfield Lane. What kind of regulations would they be breaking if they went through the Stockfield Lane through Farrell Meadows, that road back there? There's future extensions right there where they can tie in, just like we just approved for Clifton Grove. What's the difference between that?
Are you talking about
That interest coming in off Farrell Meadows? There's a
this
road.
right here?
Correct. It's like it's Stockfield Lane. I can't see exactly. It's not big enough, but yeah, it's right back in there.
Okay. Well, if they were to develop in this triangle, they would have to come back before you to amend the original master plan for Weaver's Pond. That area was included in their open space calculations. Additionally, as the applicant noted, there's only so much environmental impacts that you can do when you're constructing a development, and they have maximized that as part of the Weaver's Pond development. The proposed development is separate and independent. But in order to connect that road through here, there's a good chance that the state would not recommend approval of that.
But that's not Stockfield Lane. Stockfield
Oh,
Lane
you're
is a
talking
little
about
bit up,
here?
Correct. Yes, correct. That's Stockfield Lane.
They would have to then go through, do recombination plat in order to extend this up to bring it in, and then it would change the calculations in terms of number of units and all those details. That is a possibility for that.
Because that parcel is owned by the same people, correct? That part of that land is
Yes,
where
sir.
Stockfield Lane ties in?
That's correct.
Okay.
The only issue there is that watershed line kind of runs up diagonally,
Here.
as Mike's mouse is showing. So
Go ahead.
we never looked at it. We cut it off there because that was where we knew was clearly outside of the watershed.
So is it an option if they did take a look at that, they could somewhere run an entrance through there or not?
Potentially, depending upon where that watershed and the environmental impacts associated with it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
One last comment from me. I asked my fellow commissioners to think about Sage Tree. I'll explain Sage Tree and Weaver's Pond. That's the one street right now. As we see family growing, that's the one street that continuously where children are on 24/7, especially like during the spring break, summertime. That is a high volume of kids on that road. So I ask that we take in consideration that is that one street in Weaver's Pond that definitely has a lot of children playing on it. So we do take that volume into consideration during that time frame.
Any other questions, comments from the board? So do we have a motion?
Once again, as a point of clarification, if you do decide to move forward with the conditional zoning, I do have motions available for the annexation, which must occur first, followed by the conditional zoning. If you are not going to approve the conditional zoning, denial of the annexation would not result in an additional motion being made, as you do not have jurisdictional authority over that land. Is there any questions regarding my instructions?
So basically, we just need, if we were going to approve it, just approve the ordinance, or if we're going to deny, just deny the ordinance 23,
If you're
the
going
conditional
to,
zoning.
if you're going to approve the conditional zoning, approve ordinance 2023-40 for the annexation, and then a separate motion to approve 2023-37 for the conditional zoning. That would have to be the second motion. So this would be the first motion for approval of the annexation. But once again, staff does not recommend annexing land unless you're going to assign a zoning designation for that. Any signing of a zoning designation does require joint public hearing planning board recommendation. The applicant has provided a request for a conditional zoning, which would satisfy that requirement.
I hereby make a motion to deny ordinance 2023-40 for the annexation of Wake County PN 1797701367 into the Zebulon corporate boundaries, finding that the standards does not meet section 2.2.G.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Discussion.
I really like this development. I like it, but I have some problems with it. And I think that overall, if some of these things were addressed, I would love to have this development in Zebulon. I love the way it looks. I like the details. I like a lot of things about it. I'm struggling here. I'm struggling.
I agree. I feel the exact same way. I think that it can be a good development. I think that I do have some concerns about the diversity of the housing supply for the development and the percentages, but I haven't had an opportunity to meet with Gray and to discuss those openly. But I just, as it stands right now, because we have to annex and rezone at the same time, I'm challenged with this one.
I'll speak on my behalf. The interest way, I think we need to find it. I like the type of housing. As you guys said, agree with 100%. I think just the interest, those two interests, it needs another interest in it. I really take in consideration. Also, the water pressure. I like the way Commissioner Louts talked about the fire. How does that affect? I mean, I would definitely love to hear that from my chief. How does that affect?
This is something different. Yeah. It's a different product. I do like this.
Right.
So in the idea of fire protection, for us it's gallons per minute, it's flow, so the pressure is not an issue. We make our own pressure, but we have to have sufficient volume. So the developers taking the pipe sizes is how they take care of that. So from a fire protection perspective, there's no concerns we have. Yes, there are lower pressures, but again, we make our own pressure as long as there's sufficient volume.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You have no problems with the travel time back in there as well?
Travel time is extended. That would be one of our longer extended travel time. What helps with that is the connector through Weaver's Ridge provides a closer access for Hopkins, one of our delivery partners. It's a long distance from anything we've got even in place today or planned. It's still a long ways to go, but there are some connectivity through the Weaver's Ridge back to our partner in service delivery.
Do you have an idea of what the response time would be?
For us, it would be somewhere in the 5.5 to 6 minute range. Our 4.5 travel goal from this site, and that's where we've run so many analyses in it. It runs out just as you begin to enter into the Weaver's Pond. So I would guess it to be somewhere in the 5.5 to 6 minute travel time from Town Hall.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question on behalf of the applicant, please, if it would please the board?
Sure.
Thank you. I apologize for interrupting. I know you all are deliberating, so I wouldn't typically do this, but we hear your concerns loud and clear and appreciate the kind comments relative to the quality of the development. Mr. Barry and the folks at his team have endeavored real hard during this process to work with the town. We would relish the opportunity to be able to continue to do that rather than having the annexation denied tonight. We would request that the matter be tabled so that we can continue to work on these issues. Candidly, as you heard from Mr. Barry, you know, a denial of this case doesn't change a lot of the issues that you're talking about. It just changes who's approving the permits. It's just going to turn around and the property's going to be sold and it's going to go to Wake County and you're still going to have the same vehicular connections. You're going to have less sidewalks. You're going to have less quality, you know, and it's going to be the county that's serving this property. Mr. Barry doesn't want to see that happen, would very much rather be in the corporate limits, work with the town. So if it would please the board, we would request that the matter be tabled rather than denied tonight so we can get to work on these issues. Thank you.
I have no problem doing that if you would like to
You have to rescind your
adjust your motion.
Before I rescind this, I just want to ensure what issues are we going to be, you guys are going to be taking a look at before I rescind this denial?
But it sounds like water pressure is one that we need to take a look at, access to the site to see what options we have available to us at this time. And I was jotting down notes beyond those two.
The housing supply.
Housing supply, and I think that's something we can probably talk about. I think you'll feel good with that answer, but happy to answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I remove my motion. I rescind my motion.
Motion is rescinded.
I make a motion to table the ordinance 2023-40.
I'm sorry, I need to interrupt.
sorry.
It was made and seconded, so you would have to agree to rescinding
I
the motion.
rescind my second. Yeah.
Do you have a time? Is there a timeline that you would need
It's-
next month?
It would probably not be next month.
Okay.
6 months out.
I mean, like, that works for me, not next month, because we got a lot going on.
We got about 6 months out.
2 months?
2 months. Yeah, that would, I think 2 months would give us sufficient time to be able to kind of fully assess these and come back with updated information.
June,
That's
July?
budget.
No, that's just right after.
Right.
Could do
July.
August?
Yeah.
July.
That would be the July
August.
meeting.
I would say August, if that's okay with you.
We need to vote on rescinding the motion, right?
We didn't
No, we
vote
don't.
on accepting the motion.
Okay.
Okay. I think that August is a good idea then.
So we have the motion to table.
Till our August board meeting.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to say I really do like this development. I hope that we can work through. I would love to be able to partner with you guys on this. There's just some things that are still hurting in my heart when I think about it. So hopefully we can come to an agreement. Thank you so much.
And I promise to return your emails. I see them. Okay.
Any further discussion? Roll vote. Commissioner Laux? Commissioner Harrison?
Favor.
Commissioner Clark?
Favor.
Commissioner Miles?
Favor.
Commissioner Baxter?
In favor.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Point of clarification, Mayor, there is still a second motion on the table. Being that the first one was tabled, staff would recommend tabling the second motion for ordinance 2023-39 to the August regular scheduled meeting.
I
Do we have a
hereby
motion?
move to table ordinance 2023-39 to the August 23 meeting.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll vote. Commissioner Baxter?
Favor.
Commissioner Miles? Commissioner Clark?
Favor.
Commissioner Harrison?
Favor.
Commissioner Laux? Motion passes. Thank you. Before we do board comments, 10-minute recess.
I mean, whenever I go to any, like, City Vision or whatever, the guys from GFL are like, oh, you're from Zebulon, yeah, we take care of you guys. So it's like you could call anyone in GFL and they'd be like,
You know why they remember? Because they know that paper. They make some money off of you, that's why they remember.
well, maybe. Yep. I tend to remember folks that give me money.
We all do. We all do.
I have two aunts. One used to give me $15 at my birthday.
How long ago this been since that? You don't remember that. So they'll just block that out. I gotta learn to block that out.
We'll keep reminding you.
I see that. They're quickly throw it on me real fast. Look. But see,
I know you want to, but that's, I'm sorry, that's just the.
Oh, y'all waiting on us?
Yeah. We're ready.
Good shot can lead towards that fence.
That's just patient face.
We gotta taste it. Benson's gotta taste it.
Breed people.
I need to be sitting.
I know Joe's face.
Hit the button. Let's do it. We'll rotate the tail. I love the debate that's nice. We're really working on people's business. That's the cool part.
Yeah. Waiting on us.
I'm drinking that Coke.
Reconvene. We're going to do C 2023-36. Commissioner Baxter.
Yes, so if you'll remember, back when we talked about these funds before, we wound up allocating out $175,000 for retention bonuses, $2,000 approximately per employee. And then we asked both the police department and the fire department to give us a mock-up of how they could use the remaining funds that totaled $175,000 to be able to further support their departments. Now we have this retention bonus ordinance back before us. I think it's premature because we haven't had a report, but I also feel a little bit disappointed that it was put in consent, especially since we have asked that items such as this never go to consent. So I hope staff understands that I feel a little bit uncomfortable that this was essentially like, I feel like you're just trying to sneak it in underneath the weight of a lot of other things in the consent, and I don't like that one bit. So I'd like to discuss what this is exactly as far as the disbursement of these funds, and I'd like to understand why this has even come back before us before we heard from the fire department and the police department.
Manager Moore.
Mayor, thank you. So let me provide a couple of comments before Mr. Fitz gives you an overview of what this accounting act is, because that's really what it is. It's an accounting act. So when the board adopted their rules of procedure, what they specified is that they don't want any policy changes to be placed on consent. So that's the reason this was placed on consent. This is a budgetary accounting issue that needs to be rectified. So that's why, again, it's on consent. As far as the additional information regarding police and fire, I'm not recalling that. So if there's additional information that the board wants, then we're all ears for that. So I just wanted to provide those two clarifications, and we can take that direction after Bobby gives the accounting reasons why this ordinance is in front of you.
Yeah, I don't recall anything like that either, but when the ordinance was written, the whole 175,000 was, the slug was basically put into this administration line called retention pay. And then after a consultation with Wake County and some other municipalities that did this retention pay, it's just kind of a cleanup issue to put the salaries that were paid out and all their associated benefits and charge it to each department. So that's what it's doing, is moving part of that slug that was put in administration and dispersing it to each department to more properly account for the expenditure. So that's what this ordinance is doing.
So help me understand that you have overspent then?
No.
All right, so help me understand what these expenditures are and why these weren't budgeted.
Budgeted, but if you see the decrease in the last line, administration and retention paid, when the ordinance was written and adopted last June, all that 175,000 was put into one line, and then as we paid it out, the people who have been here before July 1 got the whole 2,000 back in November. The others that started after that are done in 3 disbursements, one at the same time in November for 500. The second one was done last week of March for 500. And then the last one, should they all still remain here at the end of June, we'll get the final 1,000.
So is this 175,000 from the $2,000 disbursement that we talked about?
Correct, yeah.
So the other 175,000 from the 350 we have still yet to hear back from fire and police about?
The only thing that was approved and budgeted was 175 total. That was our understanding of what was approved last June.
I don't mind going back through the YouTube videos to find it. I can do that for you guys.
I think there was talk at the beginning of 350 with doing a 4,000 per person, but then it was decreased to
2,000 per
Correct.
person.
Right. And that's all that was budgeted for this year, and that's all that's been paid or going to be paid.
And so, just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, this is just the accounting of how those funds were dispersed to each person?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. This is not any additional funding. This is not, nothing was overspent. This is just cleaning up the payment of the budgeted funds that were appropriated last June for this budget. Then when the policy was created, and then I think it was in the November work session, it was okayed, the policy, and then shortly after that, we paid the first disbursement. So that's where we are with this ordinance, just cleaning up the payment of what was budgeted already.
Okay. I would like to, I guess, make a statement that if some accounting, or if anything is a large amount of money, I would like it to not be put in consent. I would like to make sure that we have time to talk about it. And we might adopt it right away, but this was an awful lot of money with very little explanation as to where it was coming from. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
So would you like to give directive to make sure in the future that it comes back to her, you're good with this?
As long as you guys are in, perhaps you need to give your opinion as well, just so that they can say that there was a consensus.
We need a motion. We need a motion also,
Okay.
since it was,
Go ahead, Bev.
I make a motion, we adopt ordinance 2023-36.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I just want to make sure Commissioner Baxter is, you're getting what you want for the future, that staff understands anything in large amounts like that coming before us. Yes. Okay, thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Do we need, you want the discussion before we vote on it?
No, we can go ahead.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll vote, Commissioner Laux?
In favor.
Commissioner Harrison?
Favor.
Commissioner Clark?
Favor?
Commissioner Commissioner Miles?
Approve.
Commissioner Baxter?
In favor.
The motion passes. Thank you.
So that was like our November work session?
Comments?
I want to make sure I know where I'm going back to.
Commissioner Laux?
Two quick items. Just like to thank the town staff for all the hard work on both the concert here at the town hall as well as the Spring Festival concert downtown. And number two, very, very important, a reminder to all parents and gun owners, please discuss gun safety in your family. And if you're a firearms keeper, please secure your weapons. We've had some life-changing events for some people recently that really should have been prevented. So I highly encourage that to take place. I'm finished.
Commissioner Harris.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone that came out tonight, first of all. Second, thank you for affording us the opportunity to attend City Vision last week. It was incredibly inspiring. It always is for me. It always gives us a plethora of knowledge and information to bring back to see what we can do to better the town. So thank you for that opportunity. In visiting City Vision last week, a few of us went to a session from the NLC, the National League of Cities, and am very interested in the staff looking at maybe the town we are interested in joining NLC and would like for that to be more information brought back and, if possible, included into the next budget cycle that we are getting ready to go into, as well as after speaking with a few of our staff members, it has been brought to my attention that our professional development budget is not quite sustainable for the things that this particular board likes to do. So I would also like to make a recommendation as we move into the next budget cycle to increase the professional development line for our board. And that is it. Thank you.
Commissioner Clark.
I'd like to thank the Rec Department and Public Works and Fire and Police for working on with the Spring Fest this weekend. It was great. And also Preservation Zebulon's historic house tour was wonderful. I went on it and saw lots of old houses that I used to go in as a child. So that was very nice, and I appreciate all the work they put towards that.
I'm sorry, Mayor. May I say one more thing? I also want to thank the police department. We had an incident in our community this past weekend that was extremely terrifying for a lot of residents, myself included. So thank you for your promptness to it, and thank you all for providing us with as much detail as you could so that we could communicate that, so that I could communicate that as best I could to the residents. I think that those talking points that you all give us was really helpful I know it was super helpful for me this past weekend. So thank you all for that.
Miles.
Let's see here. So as one who loves history, I would like to say what an exciting experience it was this past Saturday to be a part of Preservation Zebulon Historic Home Tour. The houses, the owners, the members of Preservation Zebulon are all truly second to none. Thank you all who were part of this incredible event. Summer is coming up, and so are tons of town programs, camps, and activities. I encourage everyone to check out the town website under the Park and Rec Department. There's something just about for everyone. And lastly, just want to say how appreciative I am to my fellow commissioners, the mayor, and myself had the opportunity to attend the City Vision in Concord last week. Great opportunities. That's all for now. Unity through community.
Commissioner Baxter.
So we had the Special Olympics auction at the Old Raleigh Distillery, and the donors were extremely generous. The bidders were extremely generous. The funds raised is going towards an exceptional cause. I know several children in our community who will probably grow up and want to be a part of Special Olympics. So to know that we work hard to continue that program moving forward is really amazing. I do believe, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, you are still taking donation money. So if anyone would like to dig around in their couch and pull out their checkbook or cash in their 401k, there's plenty of t-shirts that are left, and they are very comfy. So please consider reaching out to the police department to support the Special Olympics initiative. I also would like to say that City Vision is always very, very, very good for the commissioners and the mayor to attend. And what's amazing is that our entire board and the mayor have all gone for the past 2 years, and no one else's municipality does that. And I usually get a lot of, boy, I wish that I could get anyone but myself to come. And it just speaks to how dedicated we are to moving our city forward, well, our town forward, and in the right direction, because we're able to get best practices. We're able to learn from other municipalities' disasters and pitfalls and things that weren't as successful. And so the same can be said of the Main Street program. We were members of NLC in the past. We should be members again. We do participate in Women in Municipal Government, but I want to make sure that we do attend all of these conferences because we learn so much from them. There is a Women in Municipal Government event in August, and then there's the NLC event in November, but it's not just the event, it's the amount of participation and the great information that's pushed out throughout the year. So if we can make sure that we get that appropriately put into our budget, that would be fantastic. I wish that I could say that I was able to attend all of the events that went on this weekend, but there was just no way to. How awesome is that? That we have more events that we could possibly all attend at one time. I did manage to make it out to Mudcat Stadium for a couple minutes to get my blackout jersey and to see a few balls pitched, and that was lovely. Then Springfest exceeded my expectations, and it did for a lot of people. We saw all of the people that we know in Zebulon, and then all of the people that we don't know. Where did they come from? Did we finally reach out to everyone in our newer communities? Was it people coming from other municipalities? I think it was both, and it's wonderful because we have people downtown engaging with our businesses and being able to participate in all the wonderful things that we have going on. So thank you to everyone that made that happen, and it's actually every single department worked to make that happen. The visible people, of course, are Public Works and Fire and Police and Parks and Rec, but I know that there was help from everyone that worked on staff, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And I think everyone has said what I wanted to say, so thank you. Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to recognize Michael Clark of Planning Department to go through this month's development update.
Well, we haven't seen Mike all night.
Hi, my name's Mike.
Can you spell that, please, sir?
The development update this month is actually quite a bit less than previous months. We've, over the past 2 months, actually received no new applications for significant developments. Having said that, there is some informative updates. First of all, everybody's probably seen the clearing for the North Arundel townhomes on North Arundel. They're called townhomes, but they're actually paired units to look like townhomes. The site plan is available online. They are individual units, individual parcels as opposed to duplex, but they are paired units, so 2 and 2. The elevations are available. There we go. These are what they will look like upon completion. It's a more urbanist style development, which is characteristic of more pedestrian-based downtowns. Total of 12 units, 10 of which are going to have frontage on Arundel. Furthermore, in terms of other developments, we've had several meetings recently regarding possible new developments coming in, including possible redevelopment of this site and this site. We're not locked down on the uses, so it'd be premature for me to discuss the specific actions. This site will be coming before you at some point for a conditional rezoning for a convenience store and gas station. We are still working through the site plan details on that, as well as their traffic impact analysis. We're having a different engineer than what we normally use for this, specifically the engineer that designed the North Arundel Access Management Plan. We've determined that they're probably much more familiar with the future improvements and everything else as opposed to a regular engineer.
Are they going to, is that the entrance and egress is going to be off of Dogwood, right? And not off of North Arundel?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's actually, here, let me call up the plans. They'll have one entrance here, and we're trying to coordinate with the lining up with potentially with the cookout that is in review across the street from Dogwood. They will also have an exit, or they'll have a second entrance. These fueling stations are going to be primarily for semi-trucks, and then an exit onto the extension of Jones Street here, which will be constructed by the developer. But this will be coming before you for conditional rezoning. This is the first iteration of these plans, probably going to change pretty significantly before they get to you. One item as kind of a heads up, as you know, the Wakelawn Mills project has kind of been in limbo. We've had negotiations with them and discussions regarding the feasibility of this project. Today we received an exempt subdivision request to officially split off that tract of land. So right now, we're not sure if that project will be moving forward. We have yet to receive any formal request to rescind the project, but we were a little surprised to see the actual recombination plat move forward. The recombination plat does mirror the same outline as the Wakelawn Mills, but it is different than what was initially submitted as part of the request. Finally, where is it? There we go. These two developments, Dory Meadows, we've continually meeting with the developers. We have another meeting scheduled this week. Probably going to see joint public hearings sometime in the fall. Much like the Walpurdy request, this will require both annexation and adoption of an ordinance at the same time, as well as Zebulon South, which is also a mixed product residential development that will also create east-west connections that are found in your comprehensive transportation plan. Finally, you'll be seeing this project come forth in the fall. We are still coordinating to make sure that all the roads align with the adjacent Ammons development that is in Wendell to help make this one seamless development before it comes before you for conditional zoning. And with that, that completes the development update. I'm available if you have any questions.
The 706 North Arundel project, I'm assuming that they're going to be putting in sidewalk. And then what can we do to extend that sidewalk past 800 North Arundel to where it connects with Lee?
Oh, to extend it to this parcel?
Yeah.
Okay. We've reached out to the developer to work out the developer's agreement with the adjacent property owner. They've attempted to contact the adjacent property owner, or at least that's what they've expressed to us. But it is much more cost effective for it to be done all at the same time. Any additional off-site improvements would be the town's financial responsibility, but it does make it more cost-effective if they do it at the same time.
Okay, so they're going to put in their portion of the sidewalk, and then we would potentially pay for the portion of the sidewalk from the adjacent homeowner, but we would just pay for it all at the same time so that it was,
Pay the developer for the construction of that,
okay,
for the portion that is off-site.
okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
One quick. But can you speak a little bit on, I get a lot from the citizens saying about restaurants, things to do, more places to eat, grocery stores. Can you kind of give a little bit of synopsis of what you can say on that? If there's any action being taken on that or anything?
Yes. In addition to the Longhouse, which is still moving forward, getting historic preservation tax credits for the renovation of 120 North Arundel, there is a mixed-use development that we've been in discussion with, located potentially here on these two tracks. If that moves forward, that would include a grocery store, several parcel restaurants, as well as potentially 200-unit apartment complex. Outside of that, developers, specifically for restaurants, retail, they look at median family incomes, they look at population growth, and they look at how easy it is to work with a town. If any one of those three are not in place, they're not going to entertain it. As we continue to grow and modify things such as our comprehensive land use plan, transportation plan, our unified development ordinance, our water allocation policy, as well as we work to create a much more expansive range of housing options for those citizens, then the wider range of restaurants and grocery stores will follow suit. It's restaurants and retail follow rooftops. They supply the demand that is there or the demand that is approved and under construction.
And one last thing for me. Today I shot an email to you. I know it's kind of like coming out sideways. Sure. If you could elaborate on those numbers a little bit we sent today. I don't know if you have that email with you.
I do not have that email with me, but I know the scale of what you're talking about.
Like the total dwelling units, the recorded lots, the permits submitted but not approved, the dwelling under construction, and the dwelling with the CO's certificate of occupation.
Yeah, I'm a numbers guy, so we keep track of everything in our department. And so the numbers that Commissioner Miles is asking about, he asked specifically about how many certificate of occupancy we issued compared to how many homes that we have approved. Right now, we're running, I want to say it was around 30% of COs to approved lots. Those are only for the developments that are under construction right now. Things such as Clifton Grove or the other developments that are still in the preliminary stages are not included in those numbers. The one thing that's not included in those numbers is the expansion of what specifically those are. Are they townhomes? Are they apartment complexes? Those numbers include a 72-unit apartment complex that's a subsidized specifically for age targeted, which is also under construction. Behind Dollar General that I mentioned a couple meetings ago. The other element of it is, quick call that up so y'all can see what that looks like. See if we have the elevation still on here. Hope nobody gets motion sick.
I was just wondering if I was going to need to take a Dramamine.
But yeah, as an example, 72 units that are being constructed, which are going to be age targeted. One of the things that we want to do is make sure that we expand the range of housing options. And while those numbers in terms of COs to approved lots are one measurement, we look much deeper than that. And right now we have an overabundance of the same price point. Some of the new developments that are coming in are reflective of our new unified development ordinance, as well as the new processes and procedures that we've entertained in our department to really push forward mixed product neighborhoods when possible. And that is going to change those parameters in terms of making sure that we have housing for all.
Can I share those numbers with you just real fast so the citizens can hear that number? Because I'm a number of visual. The total dwelling units was 4,112. Recorded lots is 2,008. Permits submitted but not approved is 137. Dwellings under construction is 196. Dwelling for COs is 1,464. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for that email, too.
No problem.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions?
This is, oh,
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead, Larry.
Did you send that email to every one of us so we have that information as well?
Yes.
Number two, this relates to education. Can you update us at all with Wake County Public Education as far as a future high school, or could we invite someone from Wake County Public Education to come out and give us a presentation on what some of their long-range plans are? I hear a lot through the grapevine, but I haven't officially heard anything.
No and yes. No, I can't give you information because it is confidential and it's still public meeting. Wake County Public Schools is actively looking. I had a 2.5-hour meeting with their long-range planning department and their land acquisition department a few weeks ago regarding possible site selection of multiple different options. I can't divulge where those are at this time, but they are actively looking for potential options and opportunities here in Zebulon. The second question is yes, that would be a very good work session topic for sometime this fall. Right now, actually tonight, the Wake County is approving their budget, and some of that might be reflective on some of the stuff going towards the public schools. But I think Wake County Public Schools will be in a better position to express some of the direction, possibly provide more details than I can later this fall.
Yeah, I also have some questions for him. I'm very concerned with this new private tuition program that's being proposed, where they want to provide up to $500 million in tuition credit so people can leave public education and move into charter and private schools, which could have a huge impact.
That's correct. Yeah, and I don't have any information on that this time, but it's a very good inquiry.
Can I please request that a text amendment be brought forth to modify the UDO to address entrances and egresses on those high-volume arterials?
That's going to probably be something that we're going to have to discuss at a work session because it will create what's known as a taking. Because if you're not providing access to lots that would otherwise be accessed by a side street, where their only frontage is on that major arterial, then essentially you're telling that person you can't do anything with your land. So it's going to require an additional conversation before a text amendment comes before
Okay,
you.
well, can we start to have those additional conversations?
Sure.
Awesome.
And one last thing, cookout, so it's still in the works, and I hear that.
That's
Citizens
correct.
saying that so it's going forward in the process.
Yes, Cookout, we're still having conversations with Cookout to make sure that they meet the designs. They're having difficulties meeting the utility allocation policy, though.
Wow, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you. Human Resources update?
Yeah, but before I get into that, I wanted to expand on a few things that Mike said. So Mike said in response to the question about restaurants and retail coming in, you all influence that. You all influence that in the number of developments you approve, but also the quality of developments you improve. And when Mike makes mention of how easy the town is to get along with, he's not talking about if a developer comes in or an applicant comes in and Mike is in a grumpy mood. He's talking about the ordinances that you have and the utility allocation policy that you have can act as an incentive for some things, but for some other things, in some cases, restaurants and retail, it can act as a disincentive. So very much to Commissioner Lauk's comment, your utility allocation plan has an economic development component to it. So just wanted to clarify that to give you some sense about why we're having the discussions that we're bringing before you. And as I pull the PowerPoint back up, I'll recognize Lisa Markland for a personnel update.
Okay, HR, currently we have ads listed for 5 positions. 4 are part-time positions, 1 is a full-time position. We are scheduling interviews for the Planner 2 position, and we are wrapping up the Communications, Public Works, Operations Manager, and Accountant 2 processes.
Lisa?
Yes, ma'am.
I have had a citizen reach out a couple of times saying that they submitted an application for the part-time mowing position, and they have not received any, we've received your application, or thank you so much, or we'd love to have, they've received nothing. And so I can either get with you about that, or I can give you the name right now, whatever works best. But I just want to make sure that if people are applying through the government website, that we're not missing any folks.
They are supposed to be getting an email that is automatically generated. So if they're not getting that, that's good for me to know, because I have to reach out to our contractor and find out what's going on and why that email is not going out. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
I want to recognize a couple of other staff members before I talk about the budget, and I am going to circle back to the question regarding the procedure manual about what is and is not on consent. First, let me recognize Sheila Long to talk about the community mural project.
Hey, just one second. So if you were at Springfest this weekend, you may have seen some displays from local artists that are teens, they're community teens, that signed up to take an Intro to Murals class. And we were really excited to be able to bring something different. When we installed that butterfly in the alley, our hope was to have it change every year. And we were looking this year, we really wanted to figure out how can we make this more of a community engagement effort, and how can we engage our youth in that process. And so we came up with the idea of the Intro to Mural. And so all of the the youth that signed up for the program, they went through a program to understand how the design process works and the prepping process, and getting community engagement, as well as the actual implementation, which is getting ready to follow up. We're in the community engagement phase now. And so we had 7 local teens, and they fell in the ages of 13 to 16, submit their designs, and they were awesome. I'm really excited to see. We have some great youth artists, and I look forward to seeing where they go from here. But I did want to share that those designs, while they were released at Springfest, we are going to continue to take feedback from the community via survey on which one will be painted on the butterfly downtown. And so voting will take place through this Saturday. And you can access voting by following us on Facebook, but you can also go to the town website. If you're under Parks and Recreation, you can hit Community Engagement. And when you scroll down, it's the first thing that you see. So you can just hit Participate. And then there'll be a description and some information about each butterfly. And once you've looked through all of that, you are able to vote. And so you can hit continue, and you pick which one you would like to select. And I think that this is reflective of, 1, a great event, 2, great community engagement, but 3, awesome participation by our youth and awesome designs. We've had over 785 votes placed.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're really excited, and we hope that people will continue to support our local youth, and that we are really thrilled to see how we can expand upon this effort. So thank you.
I get a lot of feedback from the citizens saying, why can't we just get each one, put them somewhere around around the municipality, around the town somewhere. So just to let you know.
Maybe we can consider putting more butterflies out at some point. And
just to let you know,
yeah.
there's some feedback given back from citizens.
People have enjoyed that process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
I'm going to recognize Bobby Fitz for this month's budget transfers.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just going to report a handful of transfers, just some cleanup moves that we're doing to clean up some holes that are on the expenditure reports. First, in governing board, moving 3,000 from group insurance, 800 of that to FICA, 1,000 of that to travel and training, and 1,200 of that to Campo dues. And finance moved 3,000 from group insurance to contract services, Wake County tax collections. And administration moved 8,700 from salaries, 7,000 of that to advertising, 1,000 of that to materials and supplies, and then 700 to the safety committee. And public works, property and project management moved 1,500 from contract services, janitorial to fuel. Moved 2,950 from salaries, 2,000 to professional services, 2,000 to community center electricity, and 750 to public works, facility, water, and sewer. And operations moved 4,500 from insurance and bonds to fuel. And Parks and Rec moved 4,700 from group insurance, 700 to cell phones, and 4,000 to fuel. Moved 7,000 from salaries, 2,000 to part-time salaries, athletics, and 5,000 to part-time salaries, community center. And moved 5,000 from insurance and bonds to grounds maintenance. And finally moved 4,000 from retirement to part-time salaries, admin.
Could you explain what you mean by support growing leagues? On that last one, administrative part-time help to support growing leagues.
Sheila can answer that.
Okay.
I think youth leagues,
Athletic league.
So that this is in Parks and Rec it's moving to?
Yes, it's to support our sports leagues.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
absolutely.
Any other questions for? Thank you.
Okay, so let me, before I talk about the budget, let me talk about the procedure question regarding the consent. We're going to bring you back an addition to your procedures manual to talk about the feedback that you gave us regarding remote meetings. And so what our recommendation would be is when we bring that back, there'll be a prime opportunity for you to nuance, accent, whatever you want the consent part to be included within that. So that's our recommendation. We're going to continue to build your procedure manual. May do note of that there's an interest to change the consent portion. And since we have to bring you a procedures manual to codify your interest in remote meetings, our recommendation is for you to address it at that time. So
Thank you.
that would be the approach.
Thank you.
All right, now as far as the budget, and this actually ties into something that you all said tonight as well. So if you are so inclined, or if you have insomnia, you can go to Chapter 159, Article 3 of the General Statutes. It's also known affectionately as the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. And in there, it specifies when due dates are. So they have due dates for when department heads have to turn in their budgets to the manager, when the manager has to report out what the recommended budget is, and when the board has to adopt the budget. So as far as the due date for when the recommended budget gets delivered to the board, the deadline is June 1st. So you all are going to receive the recommended budget next Tuesday night. That's your first budget work session. And so you will see in there the manager's recommended budget. And the two things to pay attention to is you've heard from all spring long from different department directors of all the things that they need. Spoiler alert, the recommended budget will not include all of their things. And so that will be an opportunity for you to discuss how important is the things that are included or how important are the things that are not included. Because at that point, when the budget gets delivered to you and the community, it becomes the board's budget. So that's one thing to pay attention to. And then related to tonight, there was discussion about professional development, joining the National League of Cities. Again, this budget is going to be real tight for the amount of positions that are in there. But again, that will be an opportunity for you all to discuss as a board if you want to fund that more and what is the prioritization. So where does the funds, what gets unfunded and what gets funded is really the start of your conversations next Tuesday night.
And we'll receive the entire budget at that point.
At that point, and that's very intentional because it's an unveiling. It's revealed to you and the community at the very same time.
Okay. And are all of the budget work sessions, all of our budget meetings, those are posted online somewhere?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. You have adopted that as part of your meeting schedule. Other questions or comments? If not, that concludes the manager's report.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Next closed session per NC General Statute 143-318-11A5 to instruct the town staff or the negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the town in negotiating the price and other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease. Is there a motion?
We have to add the personnel piece that Commissioner Baxter.
And to evaluate manager's performance.
Which is 143.318 or -318.11A6.
Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
We have discussion.
We should note that we have still members of the public here.
You have to vote first, and then, yeah.
All right, are we going to stay here?
You can go ahead and vote, and then we can take a slight break for us to shut down the live streaming and for the public to.
All in favor to go in closed session? So moved.
5 minutes?
Yeah. 5 minute.
Okay.
Recess.